She hated the brunette because there was not a day without offense and because he constantly pushed her. The girl's hot tears slowly rolled down and she whispered his name. The blonde never wished him death, evil, or suffering. She held tightly to Theodore's bloody body, the boy breathing heavily as the crimson puddle around him grew larger. The blonde sincerely hoped that her tears would be able to wash away all the grievances and hatred. Her grief was slowly consuming her from within, and behind the sadness were unfading pure emotions. After a long time, the girl realized that her feelings were love that was hidden deep inside her soul. The blonde realized that the love that would have faded away was present all the time, and was waiting for the moment when she would allow herself to accept her feelings. Her name was Lily Everett. She met Theodore Valentino 2 years ago. While looking at the securities, her father explained that she was to marry the Duke of Valentino. There was a silent question in his emerald eyes. Lily wondered if her father had gone crazy. To her regret, the blonde remembered that he had long since lost his humanity. The Valentinos are a family that has protected the North since the founding of the Kingdom of France. For generations, the heads of the family have made pacts with powerful spirits. In the last decade, cracks have appeared in this foundation. The latest discord claimed the lives of the previous Duke and Duchess, as well as the heir of the Camille family. Of the survivors, only the younger brother Theodore Valentino remained. The boy had to continue the family business himself. Due to the cracks, the Valentinian family desperately needed support from other families, but they were completely isolated forces trying to contain the power. At the center of all this was Lily's family. Looking down, the blonde wondered if her family could have been involved in the appearance of this crack. The girl could not believe that her father wanted her to marry a victim of these incidents. The blonde man said that Duke Valentino had always been a difficult opponent. However, recently he had been in desperate need of support from other families. The man put 2 coins on the table. Looking into his daughter's eyes with his crazy gray eyes, he explained that through this marriage, Valentino would receive financial support from Everett. The blonde reported that they finally had the chance to erase them. Grinning, the blonde reported that he would resist at first, but would eventually give in. The father announced that from that day on, Lily would take lessons for brides. The man argued that his daughter should be capable of at least that, regardless of her incompetence. Clutching the hem of her dress tightly, the girl accepted her father's order. The man said that if she understood everything, she could go. Lily began to walk slowly towards the exit. Her father shouted after her that even a person like her should be useful. The girl looked at him with disdain and continued making the cloth. Her brother reminded her that in a normal situation the Duke would not be her equal, since he was famous for his height and attractiveness. Hyzen loomed over his sister with a malicious grin. The guy noticed that the blonde was really lucky this time. There was a distinct knock. Lily did not look up from her work and answered her brother that she had nothing to say to him. Abruptly grabbing the scissors, Hyzen asked in anger how she dared to talk to him like that. The brother reminded the girl that she was not a pure Everett. The woman standing behind the boy abruptly snatched the scissors from his hands. Hyzen asked her if she thought anything would change after she became Duchess Valentina. The blonde turned around abruptly and said that his sister would remain an incompetent and stupid nuisance in their home. The maid approached Lily and handed her the scissors. The mistress sincerely thanked the girl for her help. In a trembling voice, the maid said that there was nothing to thank her for. Looking at the maid, Lily guessed that she was new, because usually even the servants were not so friendly with her. Looking down, the girl assumed that the brunette would soon become the same as all the other servants. Getting up from the loom, the girl asked the lady if she could continue weaving the tapestry tomorrow. After a positive answer, the blonde stood up and headed towards her room. She moved along the gloomy corridors, on the walls of which the faint light of candles played. The girl greeted Owen and Lord Lennon. Smiling, the red-haired boy asked to call him simply brother, and noted that she was becoming more beautiful every day. The girl looked away in shame, dreaming of cutting out this madman's tongue. Owen grinned and said that he had already heard that their father was going to marry the girl off to Duke Valentine. The blonde said that she was just returning from a lesson for brides. The guy assured that it would be great if his sister married him, and was able to put a leash around his neck. The blonde hoped that at least now she would be useful. Lily realized that in this house she was just a tool and property. Since she was a child, she had been accustomed to having to repay them for everything they had invested in her. Since Duchess Evie had long since died, he needed a daughter in addition to her 2 sons to seal the deal. The Duke did not want to spend money on a mistress or a second wife, so in order to have an illegitimate child, he decided to adopt a child. The man chose a child with a unique appearance and silver hair. The baby's mother was a servant, and her father was unknown. The brother reassured the blonde that if her marriage with Duke Valentino did not work out, then he himself would marry her. Putting on a fake smile, the girl thanked Lenin for his support. After the unpleasant agreement, the blonde ran into her room and slammed the door behind her. The girl pressed herself tightly against the doors and slowly slid down to the floor. Lily looked thoughtfully out the window, hoping that she would someday be able to get out of this hell. The blonde wondered if Valentino would agree to marry her. The Duchess hoped that when she married him, she would be able to leave this castle and finally be happy. The blonde realized that her family had always used any means to increase their wealth and power. The girl reassured herself that the Valentinos were a family that always stood for justice and morality. Because of the feud between the two families, a huge amount of blood was spilled and mountains of corpses appeared. The blonde realized that Theodore would never be lenient with her. Hope burned in Lily's soul. The blonde reminded herself that she had lived more than 10 years this year. The only reason the girl lived in this house was because she lacked the courage to commit suicide. Marriage was a tiny glimmer of hope. A luxurious black limousine pulled up to the castle. The guy stepped out of his motorcade into the sunlight with unsteady steps. Lily realized that she wanted to know more about her fiancé. She knew that she had not had the opportunity to see him in person, even at the debutante ball. She had heard rumors, but she was curious about what Theodore was really like. Lily had heard that he was wonderful and impressive, but she didn't know if he was really like that. The blonde looked down and realized that if the rumors were true, then the guy was definitely not suitable for her as a partner. The girls grinned as they discussed the blonde's outfit. The brother asked Lily what she was wearing. The blonde asked her if she thought that in such an outfit that frigid brunette would fall in love with her. Looking down, the girl realized why her father was so concerned about her appearance. She understood that he wanted her to take full advantage of her status as Lily Everett. Smiling, the girl coquettishly asked if she was charming. The guy shuddered, not expecting such confidence from his sister. The blonde ordered her to return to her room. Looking away, Lily explained that her father had ordered her to go to the garden. The girl suggested that her brother go and convince their father himself. A vicious grin appeared on Hysen's face and he looked after his sister with disdain. When she went outside, the blonde realized that she should have put on a shawl. The fallen leaves of the trees rustled under her feet. The blonde couldn't believe that her father really thought that the guy would fall in love with her because of her unusual appearance. Hearing the men's voices, the girl shuddered and tried to hide. Lily saw her future husband for the first time. His calm face, blue eyes, and porcelain-soft skin perfectly emphasized the guy's image. The guy advised the Duke to rest a little. The brunette refused, explaining that there was no need. Theodore said that Carmen would go with him. Hearing footsteps behind him, the Duke turned around abruptly. The guy studied the girl with his intent gaze. Confusion flashed in the lady's emerald eyes. Theodore looked at his future bride intently. The blonde, embarrassed, could not understand why he was looking at her so intently. The Duke asked if the blonde was cold and without hesitation and without waiting for an answer, threw his coat over her fragile shoulders. Examining the stranger's appearance, the brunette assumed that she was Lily Everett. The girl's snow-white face was covered with a blush. The guy noticed that she was not in her best clothes for walking. The Duke asked Carmen to follow him. The brown-haired man quickly headed towards the carriage. Clutching her cape tightly, the girl watched the carriage that was taking the handsome brunette away. The brother grinned and congratulated Lily, as the Duke had finally accepted the proposal of engagement. Hysen noted that his father's cunning plan had worked. The girl timidly raised her emerald eyes. The blonde was tightly clutching a cup of hot tea in her hands. Hysen explained that he was very sorry because the Duke would strangle her on their wedding night. The girl realized that her father had pressured Theodore into agreeing to the marriage. Lily knew that the current king did not have enough power to keep the aristocratic society under control. His Majesty needed the support of Delacroix and Albinus, who were under the supervision of her father. The brother explained that it was better to marry her and enlist Everett's help than to allow the north to turn to ashes because of the crack. Hysen said that he even felt a little sorry for the Duke, because he was forced to marry her to save the province. Smiling, the blonde asked if the girl thought that he would follow his father's wishes. The guy suggested that as soon as the situation stabilized and the Duke regained power, he would immediately get rid of her. Hysen sarcastically said that she could die any day. The blonde stood up abruptly and asked when the girl would start begging him. Lily remembered the Duke's concern at their first meeting. The blonde asked what her brother was talking about. The guy grabbed his sister by a clump of clothes and ordered her not to pretend to be innocent. Hyzen ordered her to beg for salvation from this marriage. The boy begged Lily not to sit idly by and beg for leniency. Entering the room, the blonde asked his brother to let the girl go so that she could leave in peace. Hyzen jumped up abruptly and asked his relative what brought him to this room. The blonde assumed that he had come to this place to teach the idiot a good lesson. Owen explained that he needed to discuss something with his sister and asked his older brother to leave the room. The boy's face twisted and he reminded her that he had already said no and asked if his brother had gone deaf. Hyzen explained that he wanted to know what Lily would say. Ice began to appear rapidly under the older brother's feet. Owen grabbed the boy's hand sharply and explained that this was the last warning. The blonde pulled his hand away sharply and said that they would talk later. Standing next to his sister, the blonde addressed her by name. The door slammed shut. The guy said that he didn't expect much from Lily and asked her to try her best to seduce Theodore Valentino. The blonde explained that her role was very important, as they wanted to subordinate them to the Everett family. Owen asked the girl not to forget that even after she got married, the girl would still belong to him. Holding out his massive hand, the guy said that it would always belong to the Everett family, even after death. The girl's emerald eyes were filled with madness as her brother straightened her hair and called her a good girl. The boy wished her good night and slowly closed the door, leaving Lily all alone. The dim ray of light disappeared after the door closed, leaving the girl in the semi-darkness with her thoughts. In the century in which the girl lived, marriages between aristocrats had become a form of trade deal. The former Duke Valentino intended to make a political marriage with the Albini's family, but the guy fell in love with the eldest daughter of a modest viscount and married her. As a result of this deal, the property received by the Valentino family turned out to be minimal. Because of the unsuccessful marriage, the family's military power was weakened, and they found themselves in an extremely advantageous position compared to families who entered into marriages of convenience. It was after this that the Valentino family found itself on the brink of collapse. Hyzen told his sister that she was just lucky. The blonde explained that if the Valentino family had been in such financial decline, Lily would not have had a chance. The girl calmly said that she knew this information perfectly well. The blonde asked if Hyzen wanted her to tell him a little secret. Approaching her brother, Lily said that she would never ask him for help. There was a calm smile on the girl's face. The blonde said that she was sick of people like her brothers. In parting, Lily wished death to the hated family. The air was filled with the pleasant scent of roses. The luxurious hem of the dress was dragging along the floor of the temple. The blonde, with uncertain steps, was heading towards the altar with a beautiful bouquet of pink flowers. Extending his hand, the Duke said that the bride looked beautiful and congratulated his daughter. Lily was a little embarrassed because she had never heard such pleasant words from her father, and sincerely thanked him. The girl rejoiced that he was happy that he sold her. The blonde placed her fragile hand on her father's palm. Music announced the appearance of the bride. Petals fluttered in the air as a sign of triumph. The girl understood that this was all just a ridiculous performance. Lily wondered if her fiancé felt the same way. The blonde hesitantly extended her hand to her fiancé. The priest said that everyone had gathered there to witness the sacred union of two people. The girl realized that from that day on they would become husband and wife. Lily sat in an empty room where the only sounds were her breathing and the ticking of the clock. The blonde remembered that the maid had reported that the cloak the Duke had given her was damaged. The maid assured that it was possible to tear the thing apart or burn it, or do whatever she considered necessary. Lily was not surprised by this attitude, because she realized that for Theodore she was the daughter of the hated Everett family. The blonde understood that there was no point in her being offended. The girl knew that it was better not to fall in love with her husband and to stay away from him. Lily remembered that when she saw the Duke in the garden, her heart began to beat wildly, but it lasted only a moment. The door creaked open, interrupting the girl's thoughts. Turning around, the blonde saw her husband, whose luxurious torso was visible from under his robe. Lily blushed with embarrassment, seeing his luxurious muscular body. The Duke approached the table and poured himself a glass of expensive wine. Having finished the intoxicating drink, Theodore suddenly grabbed the girl by the hands and kissed her passionately. Drops of the intoxicating drink slowly flowed down the girl's cheeks. Lily asked her husband to stop. The Duchess was very embarrassed because she did not expect the wedding night to be filled with love. Realizing her mistake, the blonde said that the guy could do whatever he wanted with her. Theodore pushed her onto the bed and asked if she wanted it. The brunette began to kiss her neck passionately, which made the girl blush. The guy left a bluish mark on her snow-white neck. He squeezed her wrists tightly, pressing her tightly to the soft bed. Lily realized that the sensations were strange. The blonde noticed that her husband's face was a little red from embarrassment. She could not take her piercing gaze of emerald eyes off the brunette. The brunette stood up abruptly and suggested that this would be enough for the girl's father. He grabbed the scissors and raised them high above his head, assuming that the man would definitely not suspect anything. Drops of blood from the boy's hand slowly trickled down onto the sheets. Throwing away the scissors, the Duke explained that he saw no point in sleeping with each other if neither of them wanted to. Theodore said that the girl's family could use him as much as they wanted. The guy promised that he would not stand by twiddling his thumbs. The brunette explained that this marriage would lose all meaning when they got divorced. The guy reminded that until then they would be husband and wife only on paper, ready to separate at any moment. The door slammed loudly, leaving the blonde completely alone. Lily realized that her misfortune would not be limited to this unwanted marriage. The girl blushed, realizing that when they first met eyes it was as if an invisible arrow had struck her, leaving a scar that she didn't know how to heal. The events are transferred a few days ahead. The wheels of the luxurious carriage creaked slightly, while the bay horses rushed along the streets of the city. Looking out the window, the girl saw a destroyed city and many bloodstains on the ground. People huddled in houses destroyed by the war. The people's gaze was heavy and exhausted. Lily's body shook as she saw for the first time the aftermath of the war that the Everett family had caused. Tears slowly trickled down her face. The maid asked the lady what had happened. Opening the carriage abruptly, Theodore announced that he had come to check what the noise was inside. Smiling, the Duke suggested that the esteemed Lady Everett did not like such a horrific sight. The guy said that there was still a little bit left and asked the girl to be patient. The brunette explained that it was better for her not to look out the window. Lily wanted to object, but he slammed the door shut. The Duchess asked the maid to sit back. The brunette looked at her mistress with concern with her ruby eyes. Lily was glad that Charlotte went with her. After all, none of the other servants of the Everett estate wanted to leave. None of the other servants of the estate wanted to leave with Lily. With tears in her eyes, the brunette asked her mistress to let her go with her. The blonde realized that for those who were near her, only a thorny path lay ahead. Looking down, the Duchess assumed that she should not have taken the maid with her. Charlotte whispered to her ladyship that the Duke was very worried about her. The maid explained that Theodore had come to check on the carriage as soon as he noticed the noise coming from it. A faint smile appeared on Lily's face. Soon the carriage arrived at Valentino's estate. Theodore approached the door and announced that they had arrived and extended his hand to help the lady out of the carriage. The blonde hesitantly extended her hand to her husband. The girl slipped, lost her balance and fell into his arms. Annabella approached the carriage and congratulated her nephew on his successful arrival home. The woman was Theodore's mother's younger sister, and since the woman was not married, she took care of her nephew. Until the boy came of age, the brunette took on the role of head of their family. This was connected with the object of the former Duchess's wish. Before her death, the woman asked her sister to stay close to her son and take care of him. Annabella greeted the girl as a new member of the Valentino family. Bowing, Lily thanked Mrs. Seymour. The girl said that she was looking forward to the opportunity to get to know each other better. The head of the family turned sharply and asked Theo to go inside. The Count obeyed his aunt and glanced sideways at his wife. One of the maids led the Duchess to her room. The girl said that if the blonde needed anything, she could pull the bell cord on the bedside table. The maid asked if she had any questions. Lily said that everything was fine and she could go. Sitting on the bed, the blonde realized that it would not be easy to live as a married couple. The girl tried to remember at what point her life went awry. The blonde remembered that her mother, being a servant, spent the night with some tramp and gave birth to her, not even knowing that he would leave without telling his name. Lily decided to pretend that she simply wasn't in this estate. The girl intended to do nothing and decided to just wait for a miracle. The Duchess knew that as soon as she had any feelings, she would simply suppress them. Many nobles gathered at a luxurious ball. The blonde sat on a luxurious throne looking around. Lily remembered that several days had passed since she arrived at this house. Looking at her husband, the girl assumed that he hated her and did not even look in her direction. The blonde was uncomfortable that there was once again a huge welcoming party being held to appease her family. The girl's body language showed that she was very tense. Theodore assumed that his wife did not like the food. The Duke asked the girl to refrain from addressing him informally, as if they were close. The guy reminded her that he did not intend to remain in this marriage until his death. Penetrating the girl with his sky-blue eyes, Theodore assumed that his wife understood what he was saying. The Duke suggested not to get on each other's nerves. Lily clutched the hem of her luxurious dress tightly, insisting that she understood everything. The brunette drank another glass of wine in one gulp. Charlotte, seeing the state of her ladyship, asked if she was okay. The blonde assured that this party turned out to be more tense than she expected. Touching the mistress with her calloused hands, the brunette reported that the bath was almost ready. The girl said that if she could wait a little longer, then she... Without letting the maid finish speaking, the blonde turned around abruptly and went to another part of the room. The girl asked if other servants in this castle helped Charlotte. Charlotte said she could do her own work. The maid insisted that she did not want anyone to speak ill of the mistress over such a trifle. The brunette asked Lily not to worry, saying that she was a strong person. The Duchess asked again if no one really helped Charlotte. The girl tried to object, but the lady interrupted her. The blonde assured that she understood why she was so worried. Lily said that this house was full of people who hated her, and she explained that if she provoked new problems, it would only make her situation worse. The maid, embarrassed, asked for forgiveness. Lily assumed that she should be the one apologizing. Charlotte explained that she was an orphan, and that was the reason she took this job. The blonde said that the girl could say if she suddenly wanted to return to the Everett estate. The maid wondered why the mistress suddenly asked her about this. The brunette said that she liked being around Lily. The maid burst into tears and explained that she had never had anyone before. At that moment, the girl realized that she had found comfort in Charlotte, holding her close to her while she found comfort in her mistress. They were somewhat like two wounded animals licking each other's wounds. The blonde hugged the maid and thanked her for worrying about her. Lily apologized for hurting the girl's feelings. The blonde gently stroked the maid's face while sitting in a hot bath. The Duchess ordered the butler to bring her 2 maids who were to help her personal servants with their work. The girls, visibly nervous, asked Her Highness if she wanted to see them. Looking at one of them, the blonde assumed that her name was Laura. The lady asked why she did not help her Charlotte properly. The girl asked Laura why she neglected her duties. Bowing, the brunette explained that they had no choice because they were too busy. The girl said that she was very sorry. The maid said that the servants in the castle were constantly working because of the terrible state of the duchy. Laura assured that they were used to one person doing the work of 2. The girl was furious that the maid was trying to lecture her, because now she was the Duchess of Valentino, and accordingly the lady of this castle. Lily was surprised that they neglected the basic courtesy they should show her. The blonde said that if the maid could not cope with the duties of the lady of this estate, she would gladly accept instruction from her husband or an older family member. Coming out to the noise, Annabella asked what was happening here. Looking at the butler, the woman ordered him to explain the situation to her. The brunette explained that Laura had to fulfill her duties in any case. In a trembling voice, the girl said that she had no excuses. Mrs. Seymour asked the maids to work harder next time. The woman reported that the Duchess scolded the maids and asked them not to be upset. She explained that these girls should obey her orders without complaint and promised that there would be no more problems. Lily realized that the woman was trying to show that she had great power in this house, while she was powerless. The blonde said that she would not be outraged if they would help Charlotte properly. Annabella said she felt very sorry that she got married during such a difficult time. The brunette suggested that the Duchess had a hard time adjusting to her new surroundings. The woman promised to try to do everything possible to fix that. Annabella assured that she wanted to offer the girl something. The brunette asked if she would like to go and look around their duchy. Lily had the feeling that the woman wanted to humiliate her. Clear heartbeats with terrible thoughts flashed through the girl's head. Smiling, the Duchess promised to take a walk soon. The blonde thanked Annabella for her concern, explaining that she appreciated it. The girl walked quickly along the corridor. Theodore carefully watched everything that was happening from the window. The Duchess sat in the carriage, and after some time they reported that they had already arrived at their destination. The guard asked the girl to be careful. Looking around, the blonde realized that everything was even worse than she expected. In their country, the biggest problem was food shortage. Lily realized that even though she was wearing the most modest outfit, it was still made of silk. The girl was sure that this was not just luxury, but an insult to such people. The blonde stood with a small basket of bread while the guard poured hot soup. A few moments later, a small stone flew at the Duchess's head. The woman who threw it wished death on the blonde since she was Everett's filthy creation. A few moments later, the guards reacted by pushing the woman's face into the floor and twisting her arms behind her back. The brunette said that she would kill this witch even if she burned in hell. The woman, breaking into a scream, explained that the culprits were the girl, her worthless father and brothers. The brunette promised that she would still pay for all her sins. Lily was a little taken aback by such impudence because she was simply handing out food. The girl understood that all this was happening because she was the daughter of the Duke of Everett. Looking around, the blonde realized that everything could be understood from the eyes of the people. The girl realized that no one here would be on her side, and everyone quietly hated her. A dark cloud was gathering over the roof of the high castle. Charlotte, noticing the empty look of her mistress, asked if everything was all right with her ladyship. The brunette asked if Lily wanted a glass of warm milk before bed. The girl noted that the lady had been skipping meals too often lately. Putting a smile on her snow-white face, the blonde assured that she was fine and promised to carefully monitor her diet from the next day. The maid asked if Lily would promise to do so. The Duchess watched with a smile as the brunette left, but as soon as the girl closed her eyes, images of the consequences of the war that her father had started began to float before her eyes. The blonde realized that even if she tried to help them, it would still look insulting and hypocritical. The girl realized that she could not remain inactive and she needed to find a way. The girl looked at the small box filled with jewels. Taking the pink stone in her hands, she looked at it carefully. Lily realized that if she sold all the jewelry except for a few that she brought with her after the wedding, she would be able to show herself in a favorable light. The girl understood that her father was not interested in her further marriage. The Duchess knew that the jewelry was valuable and could fetch a good sum for it. Lily considered giving the money to the manager, but realized that people already thought she didn't know her place and was acting like a hypocrite. The girl understood that if she sold the jewelry while being married for less than a week, it might seem humiliating to the Duke. The Duchess realized that the only way to use the money for good was to sell the magic pendant that Owen had given her. With quick steps, she walked over to the other box and opened it, taking the precious artifact into her hands. The blonde ordered his sister to use it if she wanted to spy on the Valentino family. The guy explained that thanks to the pendant, she could change her appearance to whatever she imagined. After putting on the jewelry, Lily realized that with the help of the pendant she could transform into a favor or a knight to distribute food. The Countess quickly put the jewelry on her neck, planning to buy food with the money she earned from selling the other jewelry. Over a cup of tea, Theodore reminded her that his wife had sold all her jewelry. A shadow of fear appeared on the blonde's face, and her hands began to tremble violently. Lily remembered that she had paid the merchant to keep quiet, but he had still spilled the beans. The girl decided to lie, explaining that she wanted to buy new jewelry to replace the old ones. Abruptly putting the cup down on the table, the brunette explained that his wife did not have to go this way to earn money. The Duke recalled that despite their financial difficulties, the Duchy of Valentino owned the north. Theodore explained that they could buy new jewelry with the money that was allocated to maintain the girl's image and remain well off. The blonde asked for forgiveness, promising to be careful in the future. Lily carefully watched her husband's reaction, noticing that he was very pale. The girl realized that her husband and the spirit with whom he had made a pact were on bad terms. The Duchess assumed that nothing had changed. Theodore stood up abruptly and said that was all he wanted to say, and he said that it was time for him to go. Watching the brunette head for the door, the girl clutched the hem of her dress tightly. The Duke explained that her decision to sell her jewelry in order to cope with the state of affairs in their duchy once again confirmed that Lily was undoubtedly a daughter of the Everett family. A small shudder ran through the blonde's body. The girl promised not to show him such unpleasant sights from now on. The Duchess watched her husband leave. She was genuinely surprised that he did not ask if she was frightened. Lily wondered if she would be happy if the enraged man strangled her. The blonde knew he could get rid of the targets without even lifting a finger. The bright light of the full moon penetrated the bright room. Lily collapsed on her huge bed, exhausted. After lying down for a while, the blonde decided to go for a walk. The Duchess decided not to wake Charlotte, letting her get some sleep. The cold light of the stars illuminated the luxurious garden. Throwing a light robe over her shoulders, the girl went out for a walk. Lily noticed her husband and couldn't understand what he was doing in the garden at such a late hour. Looking at the huge tree, the brunette began a monologue with his late brother. Tears appeared on Theodore's face. Watching this, the girl froze, but when she stepped on the ground, a rustling sound was heard. The sound quickly attracted the guy's attention and he turned around. Turning his tear-stained face to his wife, the brunette asked what she was doing in the garden. Theodore walked quickly towards her. The girl claimed that she was just taking a walk. The Duke grabbed the blonde by her clothes and asked her if she had been peeping at him while he was crying. Lily said that she had not intended to peeping at him. Unable to keep her balance, she buried her face in the guy's chest. The Duchess's body was shaking violently. Theodore calmly explained that snooping around the castle would be unwise, since the girl would not find anything worth her attention. Smiling, the brunette asked if she really went out into the garden at such a late hour to take a walk. The guy noticed that his wife went out without her maid. The blonde said that her husband could think as he wanted. Theodore abruptly pulled his hand away and asked the girl to go with him. The blonde obeyed and followed her husband. As they walked down the long corridors of the castle, Lily jerked her wrist away from his tight grip. The Duchess was breathing heavily, because her husband was walking too fast. The guy ordered her to go into the room and not wander around alone at such a late hour anymore. The blonde realized that Theodore would never worry about her. The silhouette of the guy from the darkness was snatched by the cold light of the stars. Turning sharply, the girl wished her husband good night, although she herself longed to talk to him a little more. After the night incident, Lily was unable to sleep. The girl could not get it out of her head after seeing her husband in such a state. Entering the room, Charlotte wished her ladyship good morning. The maid asked if the girl wanted to have breakfast or wash first. The Duchess insisted that she wanted to wash up and have some fruit for breakfast. The brunette asked Lily to wait a minute. Soon, luxurious plates of sliced fruit were on the table. Charlotte asked her ladyship to promise that she would eat more at the second breakfast. Smiling, the blonde agreed and asked Charlotte to ask the merchant to come by in the afternoon. Lily said she needed to buy something. The brunette accepted her ladyship's wish. Since the blonde lied about buying new jewelry, she had to behave appropriately. Looking at the brunette, Lily realized that it was Jenna. Compared to the others, this girl didn't care about much, so it would be easier to get along with her. Lily realized that the girl didn't like her. The Duchess knew that most people in this castle didn't like her. Throwing one of the decorations, the blonde realized that there was nothing worthy. Lily was furious that she had paid the merchant to keep quiet, and he had told Theodore everything. The Duchess realized that the merchant had never intended to keep his mouth shut in the first place. Our heroine understood that any perceptive person would have decided that she had dressed herself as a puppet duchess. The girl's emerald eyes flashed with rage. She had many ways of revenge. Lily glanced sideways and reminded him that he had said that the next decoration would be the last. The Duchess asked to see the jewel. The merchant opened a luxurious marble box. He said that the decorations were to be used during the green apple period. The man was sure that this decoration would suit her ladyship. Lily said that she didn't like it either. The Duchess looked around and saw her husband. He said that he would buy the decoration. The merchant, very embarrassed, told Theodore that it was a great honor for him. The brunette coldly asked the merchant to leave the pendant, explaining that the chief manager would handle the payment. Smiling nervously, the guy thanked his lordship. The merchant said that in that case he would leave the couple. The Duke asked his wife why she didn't like the pendant. She looked away, trying not to show her emotions. The brunette told his wife that she could wear the jewelry anyway, as his modest gift. Hovering over the girl, Theodore took the decoration and pulled his hands to the girl's tender neck, explaining that he did not want to be accused of doing nothing at all for the noble daughter of the Everett family. Looking down, the blonde realized that it made sense, considering that he thought she was the Duke's daughter. She wondered how her husband would react if he found out that there wasn't a drop of Everett blood in her veins. Lily reminded herself that she would not belong to a noble family, and wondered if the brunette would despise her even more after that. Noticing his wife's confusion, the Duke asked the girl to put her hair away for a second. Lily was clutching strands of her long, silky, silver-colored hair tightly in her hand. A few moments later, the brown-haired man said that he had put the jewelry on her. The girl hesitantly touched the gift and quietly thanked him. Theodore was a little taken aback by this phrase and after a few moments left the room. Looking at the woman, the Duchess asked Mrs. Seymour if she wanted to see her. The brunette said that she needed to tell the girl something and you had to know about it. Annabella explained that the anniversary of Brother Theodore's death was coming up soon. The girl understood why her husband was crying standing in the night garden. Seymour asked the girl if she knew how Camille died. The blonde explained that she knew that he died sealing the crack. The woman explained that Camille was only 12 years old at the time, and Theo was even younger. That many died because of the sudden crack, and after the death of his parents, their eldest son died too. Pressing her trembling hand to the portrait of the former rulers, Annabella said that she deeply respected her sister and brother-in-law. The woman was sure that they deserved everyone's love. The brunette, trying to contain her emotions, asked how they could die at such a young age. Feeling the contemptuous gaze on her, Lily assumed that the woman suspected that the Everett family was somehow involved in these deaths. The blonde realized that if her suspicions were true, then her family had long had control over the cracks. The girl remembered that she had never heard that such a thing was possible. Lily assumed that her father could have found a way. The woman said that Camille was a good child, conscientious, attentive, and everyone loved the boy. Annabella explained that Theodore adored his brother and therefore when he died, the brother was beside himself with grief. The brunette said that every time the anniversary of Camille's death came, the Duke would fall into melancholy for a while. The woman said that in a few days they would hold a memorial ceremony. Annabella warned that the Duchess, as the lady of the house, must be responsible for the budget, the schedule, and the guests. The brunette explained that she would do it herself, since the girl had not yet settled in, and she assured that mistakes could not be made during the event. She asked if the Duchess understood her. Lily answered positively. The girl sat alone in her room. She carefully examined the decoration that her husband had given her. Lily realized that she had sincerely wanted to calm him down that night. The blonde assumed that Annabella had warned her not to try to comfort the boy when she saw him in such a state. The Duchess tried to convince herself that it was none of her business. The blonde reminded herself that she had to know her place. It was very difficult for the girl to see her husband suffer without taking any action. Lily realized that if Owen, Hyson, or Lennon were in a similar state, she would easily ignore them. For the lady, the brunette was special, but she could not understand why she felt this way towards Duke Valentino. Lily forced herself not to think about it, reminding herself that she would either be poisoned or divorced. She knew she shouldn't feel anything for Theodore. The blonde abruptly grabbed the decoration from a visible place and hid it in the box. The Duchess was determined to lock her feelings, so that even a shadow could not get out. The girl hoped that after this she would no longer want to console her husband. Lily imagined that there was a small box inside her, and decided to hide in it everything she was so afraid to think about. The girl tried to prove to herself that these were not her emotions. She realized that if her feelings got names and started talking, she would become unhappy. The rain fell in heavy drops on the lawn of the huge cemetery. Standing in the middle of those present, the blonde was like a disembodied shadow. Those present discussed how cruel the heavens were to such good people as Camille and Theodore. Many people condemned the girl's family, believing that they lived undeservedly well. The guy approached his wife and asked her why she was standing in the rain. The Duke said that the girl needed shelter and offered his wife to take his umbrella. When the couple entered the building's lobby, one of the girls greeted the guy with a playful smile. The girl introduced herself as Adelina Albinus. The blonde with a beaming smile on her face assumed that they had not met before. Bowing, Lily assumed that she was the daughter of Duke Albinus. The blonde explained that she had heard about her and assured that she was very pleased to meet her. Coming closer, the old acquaintance took the guy by the hand, explaining that they were close childhood friends. Adelina assured that they were so close that they did not keep secrets from each other. Some time ago there were rumors about a marriage between the blonde and Theodore. However, it was said that Duke Albinus was categorically against it. The blonde realized that once she divorced Theodore, she would be able to marry him if the Duke gave his permission. The girl noticed that the Duchess had turned pale and asked how she was feeling. Lily caught herself thinking that the girl was very lucky. Lily assured that she was fine, and suggested that her old friends make up for lost time without her. And saying that it was time for her to leave, she headed for the exit. Her husband watched her with some regret. The small room was illuminated by the fire from the huge fireplace. The blonde was tightly clutching a mug of aromatic hot tea in her hands. The flames cast a shadow that played on the walls of the room, creating a cozy atmosphere. The blonde wondered if she had stolen Adeline's place. A shadow of doubt crept into the girl's soul and whispered that she could have comforted Theodore in a way she never could. Closing her eyes, the girl tried in vain to drive such thoughts away from herself. Looking at the lady with devoted eyes, the brunette asked if she wanted to go to bed early today. Charlotte suggested that lavender incense would help her fall asleep faster. Looking down, the Duchess asked the girl to light the incense. Lily watched the maid with her dull eyes. The girl sincerely thanked the brunette, which caused a radiant smile to light up her face. Charlotte thanked her mistress sincerely and wished her good night. Left completely alone, the blonde looked out the window with an empty gaze. After thinking for a bit, the girl got up from the creaky bed and opened the drawer, taking a jar of sleeping pills from there. The blonde swallowed the many capsules with difficulty, pouring them into her hand. Lily realized that she was in a dream. The Duchess realized that if this was another nightmare with her brothers or Lennon, she would be able to destroy them, at least in her subconscious. The blonde reminded herself that her dream had her own rules. Someone called the girl's name from behind her, causing her to turn around. She saw a happy Theodore in front of her, which caused fear to flash through her eyes. The husband began to gently stroke the girl's cheek. Taking a sharp step away from him, Lily ordered her husband not to come closer. The brunette asked excitedly what was going on. The Duke extended his hand to his beloved, asking what had happened. Gritting her teeth tightly, the blonde could not understand why he had appeared in her dreams. Lily begged herself to wake up, and after a few moments she was plunged into darkness. Hot tears slowly flowed from her emerald eyes. The girl tried her best to calm down and convince herself that it was just a normal dream, and it didn't mean anything. She heard a sharp sound behind her, and her body was pierced by a small tremor. The girl jumped up from her seat and turned around, seeing her husband's gloomy face behind her. The blonde looked at the guy's condition and realized that he was drunk. Lily explained to Duke Valentino in a trembling voice that he had the wrong room. The guy buried his face in her chest. The blonde anxiously offered to help him sit down. The Duchess couldn't decide whether she should call a servant or Charlotte. Theodore wondered if anyone had completely lost their minds. The girl carefully supported the brunette's face so that he wouldn't fall. Lily knew she had to stop. The blonde, for some reason, wanted to cry every time she saw the guy. The girl's heart was beating so hard and hurting so much that she wanted it to just stop. From the moment Lily first saw the brunette in Everett Castle, she felt real fear. Lily knew that her heart would be broken and that misery would consume her. The girl knew that she should not expect anything from her husband, because she was not in a position to offer him anything in return. The blonde understood that she had to suppress these feelings, since she would not be able to bear this burden herself. Lily wiped his tears with care, looking into her husband's empty eyes. The girl understood that he would not be able to reciprocate her feelings, and she should not expect anything like that from him. Holding the guy tightly to herself, the blonde dreamed that this moment would last forever. The Duchess gently kissed her husband on the forehead, trying to console him at least a little. Cold light was shining through the windows. Lily fell asleep standing next to her husband. The brunette hesitantly opened his eyes. Misunderstanding was visible in the blue eyes, and the guy's body shuddered in surprise. Theodore roughly pushed the girl away and stood up abruptly. Covering his face with his hand, the Duke wondered what he had been thinking about the previous evening. The brunette muttered through his teeth that he had been mistaken and promised that it would never happen again. Lily tripped and fell. She hugged her husband's shoulder tightly and asked him not to leave. The blonde wanted to say that she was not the Duke of Everett's biological daughter, and had no relation to these monsters at all. The girl, her voice trembling with excitement, said that she would not be at all against something similar happening again. The brunette abruptly pulled his hand out of the girl's embrace and asked if she had decided to joke about him. Theodore assumed that she had been perfecting this technique even before their meeting, and he assured her that he was very sorry that it didn't work. The blonde asked in a trembling voice what her husband meant. The guy asked her not to pretend, explaining that he knew that his wife's family had ordered him to be seduced. Duke Valentino assumed that she was trying to attract his attention in the garden of Everett Castle. The blonde blurted out, offended, that it was an accident. The guy asked why she was making excuses, because he was sure that her family had planned everything from the very beginning. With tears in her eyes, Lily said that he was wrong. Taking a step towards her, the guy asked her how it felt to seduce a man she didn't even like. Sharply grabbing the girl by the shoulder, the guy explained that her words did not sound at all convincing, but he would do what she wanted. The Count kissed his wife passionately. Theodore, after the girl fell to the floor, asked what it was like to kiss someone she didn't love. The brunette grinned and asked if the girl wanted to go further. With a sly smile, he asked if Lily would be able to perform her marital duties every night. After these words, the girl hit her husband in the face with all her might. A mark appeared on the brunette's snow-white face. In a trembling voice, the blonde said that he knew nothing. The guy grinned and explained that he was sure that the daughter of the all-powerful Duke Everett would never want to sleep with him. He looked at his wife with contempt in his eyes and asked for forgiveness for her impudence. Soon the door slammed shut, leaving the girl completely alone. Her face was very red and tears were streaming from her eyes. The Duchess realized that her life would be easier if she were a monster like her father. Lily, with tears in her eyes, tried to understand why this had to happen to her. After this incident, the husband's attitude towards the blonde became much colder. The girl followed him down the long corridors, explaining that she had something to tell him. The Duke coldly snapped that he was busy. Lily assured him that it would not take long. Theodore decided to listen to her story briefly. In a trembling voice, the girl told that her father and brothers were completely different. The blonde insisted that she had married him not to harm Valentino's family, but because her father had forced her to do so. The girl explained that she wanted to be useful to his family. The brunette chuckled sarcastic and asked his wife to be a little more convincing. Theodore admitted that the girl seemed quite sincere to him. At this point in their relationship, the Duke would often go to the front lines to heal any cracks that were appearing in the duchy. Because of the brunette's busy schedule, they began to see each other and talk very rarely. Lily was overcome with a feeling of defeat every day. The blonde was excluded from all family events and completely cut off from even minor events. Mrs. Seymour happily turned a blind eye to the servants' sophisticated bullying. It seemed that the girl did not care at all. The only person who could hurt her was Theodore. The guy's attitude remained cold, despite all the attempts Lily made. The girl didn't want to go to events with him, but just wanted to stay in the garden and restore the abandoned greenhouse. The blonde dreamed that he would stay with her at least at parties. Another day, Lily's strength was exhausted and she realized that Theodore would never stand by her side. The girl realized that she was just expendable material. She knew that she belonged to her father, as if she were a thing. Because of her noble family, many men wanted to acquire the blonde. Many were already waiting for the girl's divorce from Duke Valentino. Owen weighed the wealth of those who wanted to take her as a second wife or concubine. The blonde was genuinely surprised that there were so many who wanted to get her shell. Lily realized that the usually beautiful dolls were easy to handle, but unfortunately empty inside. The girl understood perfectly well that Theodore was forced to marry her in order to protect his family's possessions. She understood that neither of them wanted this marriage. After some time, Lily began to develop feelings for the man who despised her and her family. The girl sincerely regretted that she had placed useless hopes on him, and this was her real misfortune. The events unfold a year and a half after the wedding. The blonde stood by the window waiting for her husband to appear. Someone turned to Lily from behind and asked her to come over. After hearing this, the girl's face was ashen. Her quick steps echoed down the long corridors. The Duchess knocked hesitantly on the door. The woman raised her head wearily and asked her ladyship to come in. The blonde's eyes were lowered as she smelled the strong smell of medicine. The doctor reported that the gentleman had lost a lot of blood while being transported. The woman claimed that the gentleman's condition was stable. She assured that his lordship would soon recover quickly. The girl was genuinely worried about Theodore when she was told that her husband was seriously injured while repairing the crack. Lily realized that her fears were unfounded, and that her husband's health was always strong. The blonde understood that it was time for her to go, since Theodore needed to rest to restore his energy. The brunette asked the girl why she was leaving so quickly. The healer asked Lily to wait until her husband woke up. The girl coldly replied that it would be better if the Duke did not see her. Following the lady, the woman asked what she meant. The blonde looked at her husband's bed with some sadness. The guy hesitantly got up from the bed and looked at her in surprise. Lily couldn't understand why her lover was silent. The blonde assumed that it would be better for her to leave before he said anything. The girl asked her husband for forgiveness for disturbing his peace. Theodore was surprised and asked who she was. The guy looked at Lily with his sky-blue eyes. The girl assumed that her lover had finally gone crazy. The blonde excitedly assured that she was his wife. The doctor excitedly asked if his lordship remembered the girl who was his wife. The Duke asked if he was married. The woman asked incredulously if he had really forgotten that he had been married for over a year. The healer was genuinely surprised that the guy remembered her, but not his husband. Lily's heart began to pound wildly and a spark of hope flashed in her eyes. The brunette said with horror that he really couldn't remember. The woman lowered her eyes and said that the Duke suffered from amnesia. The healer reassured him that the guy remembered everything important, explaining that it was partly amnesia. The brunette assured him that they would have to wait and see if the Duke would remember her. Lily assumed that the woman was sure that a simple conversation would restore his memory. The girl thought that her husband wanted to forget her because of his strong contempt. Smiling, Theodore extended his hand, asking his wife to come closer. The blonde hesitantly extended her hand in response and looked into his eyes. The guy asked if he could find out her name. After the Duchess introduced herself, the guy noticed that she had a very beautiful name. Lily excitedly blurted out her last name, explaining that this was her name before their marriage. The blonde asked her lover if he really didn't remember anything. Having received an affirmative answer, the girl asked her husband to ask another person about her. The Duchess explained that this would give an idea of how to communicate with her. The blonde tried to get out, but the guy stopped her, asking her to wait a bit. Lily hesitantly explained that she wanted to leave and asked the guy to let go of her hand. The brunette suddenly grabbed her by both hands and pressed her to himself. He asked if he had ever offended the girl in any way. The Duke asked his wife to tell him how they got married if it had not been so difficult for her. Lily muttered through her teeth that he should ask someone else. The girl assured him that even she felt ashamed, so she would not tell. The Duchess once again asked Theodore to let her go. After the guy let go of her hand, Lily quickly left, leaving him completely bewildered. The brunette was sitting in his office. The guy heard the news that the Duchess did not want to see him. Theodore slammed the book shut and looked at Charlotte in surprise. The maid's body was shaking and her ruby eyes were downcast. After the brunette woke up, the butler told him that he had married the Duchess for the good of the Valentino family. A year and a half seemed to the boy to be both a long and a short period of time. He vaguely remembered visiting the Everett estate about 2 years ago. The boy clearly remembered bumping into someone, but he couldn't remember who exactly. Theodore couldn't understand why only her memories had disappeared. The maid, embarrassed, explained that her name was Charlotte. The Duke sternly asked to be taken to his wife's room. The girl's face was distorted with indignation, but she obeyed his lordship's order. Bowing, the brunette explained that Mrs. Lily had left, saying that she would not stay long. The guy assumed that the Duchess would not have gone out alone and asked who was accompanying her today. Noticing that the maid hesitated, the brunette asked if she wanted to say that there was no escort. The girl, looking down, insisted that the lady had often gone out for a walk like that before. Charlotte, growing nervous, realized that her colleague clearly knew something. The guy persistently asked where his wife was. The maid, looking down, explained that she didn't know. Theodore explained that he knew perfectly well that the brunette often saw Lily and asked the reason. The maid explained that the mistress often walked by the river outside the city. The girl honestly admitted that she really did not know where Lily was that day. The brunette grinned and realized that his wife had her own secrets. Sharply yanking the handle of his wife's room door, he decided to find out everything. Charlotte was horrified that Monsieur Theodore had entered the Duchess's room without her permission. Theodore confidently took one of the boxes and looked at the decoration that was lying there. The brunette suddenly remembered something and tried to remember more. He looked at the picture that was painted by his beloved. Charlotte explained to the gentleman in a trembling voice that it was painted by Mrs. Lily. The brunette noticed that the drawing was very interesting. The maid knew that Theodore Valentino did whatever he wanted and was usually kind to his people. She realized that, however, her mistress was always an exception, as if the guy had to endure her presence through force. The guy continued to rummage through the boxes without stopping. He took a flask with medicine and asked what was in it. Fear and panic appeared in Charlotte's eyes. On this day, Lily went to the city. The girl, using a magical artifact for disguise and incognito, distributed food to people. The girl handed a few tubers to a local resident and explained that a little help could still help them. Smiling, the woman noted that the girl was very kind to them and always came to town with food to support them. The brunette insisted that if it weren't for the girl, she would have frozen to death in the winter. A local resident recalled that she had given out blankets in the winter and that their life had recently begun to improve. Cracks had stopped appearing every day, as had been the case for many years. People sincerely thanked the Lord for bravely fighting the monsters and making them almost extinct. The Lord's power grew daily and the monster crack did not have a single chance. Initially, Seraphim made a pact with the elder brother of the Valentino family, but eventually recognized Theodore as its new master, and the power began to stabilize. Now the ruler was able to deal with the cracks, and the Valentino family no longer needed the Everett family's help. Throwing the robe over her head, Lily realized that they would soon get divorced, regardless of whether her boyfriend remembered her or not. Smiling, the woman asked her savior if she was going to leave. Smiling, the girl explained that she still had things to do and promised to bring fresh fruit next time. The embarrassed woman explained that it was not worth doing, because they were grateful to her for this too. Smiling, The brunette explained that she was seriously doing this from the bottom of her heart. The girl heard the noise of a quarrel and recognized a rather familiar voice. Turning around, the girl saw her brother, who was furiously fighting with one of the locals. The blonde man stated that the townspeople were just a bunch of insects from Veronica's domain. Hyson asked if the locals knew who he was. Lily, standing in the middle of a crowd of commoners, could not understand how this could happen. The girl carefully watched the fuss. The brunette knew that her brother often brought his men to fight for the Duchy of Veronese. The girl was horrified that Hyson had begun to show violence. The blonde looked back sharply at his opponent and asked why he was looking at him like that. The guy assumed that the brunette wanted to die. Approaching a local resident, the girl sincerely asked what was happening. Looking at the young lady with disdain, Hyson asked how she dared to insult the Everett family in his presence. The brunette's teeth clenched tightly as she realized that the relationship between the residents of the duchy and her family had changed slightly. She knew very well that before it was pure hatred, but recently there were many who mocked the Everett family. Lily knew that her brother had a hot temper and would not tolerate such things. The guy suggested cutting the throats or cutting out the tongues of his offenders. The guy furiously asked the uninvited guest who he was, that he should make a decision for them. The crowd assured that only the master could punish them. The man blurted out that everyone knew the Everett house was the devil's lair. The old man explained in a trembling voice that he would find out about those hairs anywhere. The resident explained that the guy was the son of Duke Everett. The blonde chuckled and was outraged that only now did the residents realize who he was. The guy asked the young people to choose: cut out their tongues or cut their throats. Hyson pointed his finger at one of the offenders and said that he would be the first to accept his punishment. The three residents trembled. Lily couldn't stand by and watch this happen. The girl stepped forward and bowed. The brunette explained that her name was Leah. She introduced herself as a servant who worked in the castle of Duke Valentino. The girl asked for forgiveness for her interference. Leah sincerely asked for forgiveness also on behalf of all people and asked to listen to her. The brunette explained that from the very beginning, local residents did not receive a proper education. Leah explained that in addition to this, local residents have experienced attacks from magical creatures over the past year and a half. The girl assumed that her compatriots had said this thoughtlessly. Because of this, the brunette asked them to find the strength to show mercy to them and forgive them. Sharply pointing the sword towards Leah, the guy noted that she was too brave to be a simple servant. The blonde noted that her manners were excellent, considering that she worked in the castle. The girl thanked him sincerely. Abruptly grabbing the girl by the hand, Hyson pulled her towards him and looked into her green eyes. The blonde asked what she was doing, assuming that she had found a new hobby. Cold sweat slowly began to trickle down Lily's face. The girl was sure that the pendant should have worked perfectly. Pulling the girl away from the eyes of onlookers, the guy roughly pressed her against the wall. He asked what kind of ugly shell she had come up with for disguise. The blonde ordered his sister to return everything back immediately. The girl sighed heavily and regained her former face. There was a silent sadness in her emerald eyes. The brother asked Lily why she was walking around the city dressed as a servant. The guy reminded Lily that she was a duchess. The guy grinned, took out a rope and grabbed his sister's hand. The duchess asked him what he was doing. Hyson was asking if she was really going to marry a jerk like Lennon. The girl indignantly asked since when her brother had been thinking about this. The blonde asked since when it had not been his business. Hyson roughly dragged the girl to a horse standing nearby. Theodore, clutching the reins of his horse tightly, ordered the boy to stop. The Duke looked with horror at his wife's bound hands. The brunette stood between Lily and her brother. The guy ordered the blonde to answer honestly. Hyson asked the Duke since when he had been worried about this tramp. Gritting his teeth tightly, the brunette asked again what he had called his wife. Twirling his finger at his temple, the guy asked the Duke if he had ever hit his head. The blonde reminded Theodore that he had spoken of Lily Everett, to whom he had great contempt and dislike. Hyson asked how he could treat her like a treasure. The Duchess looked down and realized that it would be bad if he said anything about his memory loss. The girl knew that her family could use such a trifle against the guy. After Lily untied her hands, she stood between the boys and explained to her younger brother that he should stop playing pranks on her. The blonde explained to the boys that it was absolutely not funny. The girl was surprised that he flinched. Lily realized that her brother was sure that she would not be able to untie something like that. The girl asked his lordship not to worry, claiming that there was nothing serious. The brunette asked his wife how she could say something like that. The guy reminded Lily that he controlled her and tried to drag her away, as if she were a hooligan. The blonde was very surprised by the Duke's behavior and realized that he was not the person she knew. The girl wondered if the boy would be so upset if he were the one she knew before losing her memory. Lily glanced sideways and realized that her husband wouldn't even look for her or pay attention to it. The Duchess knew she had no choice but to pretend. The girl's vision suddenly became blurry and she quickly fell into the abyss. Lily felt hopeless as she was suffocating. The girl felt as if she was slowly drowning. Opening her eyes, the blonde realized that she was in her room. Kneeling by the bed, Charlotte asked her ladyship if she was okay. The maid asked the girl to breathe evenly and not to hurry. Gritting her teeth tightly, the girl realized that she had finally gotten rid of her brother's presence. Looking around the room, the Duchess saw her husband, who was looking at her with excitement. The blonde was genuinely surprised by the guy's behavior. Sitting down next to her on the bed, Theodore asked how she felt. The blonde explained that she was fine. The Duke assured that he was scared when his wife stopped breathing. The guy explained that the doctor ordered to monitor her condition and asked his beloved not to miss meetings with him. Lily felt her heart trying to escape from her chest. The blonde asked excitedly if her brother Hyson had left. She was assured that he had returned to his residence in Salisbury and was not in Voronezh. Lily was genuinely surprised that her brother had a private residence, since he had always been proud to be a member of the Everett family. The blonde often showed his loyalty to the family with his actions. The girl knew very well that her brother did not start his own business, and only a few knights followed him. The blonde couldn't understand why the guy suddenly started caring about property. Lily assumed that maybe her family was hiding something from each other. The brunette approached the girl, interrupting her thoughts. The Duchess reminded herself that it didn't matter what happened to her brother, since he could be funny and cruel at the same time. The husband told the girl that she needed to rest. Theodore asked if the blonde wanted him to stay with her. The blonde looked down and explained that she didn't want it. The girl insisted that she meant that she wanted to be alone because she felt uncomfortable when people were around her. Smiling, the Duke asked for forgiveness for not thinking about it in advance. The guy said that he was leaving and asked his beloved to rest. Lily wished the Duke good night in return. The brunette asked if she could address him by his first name next time. When Charlotte was left alone with her mistress, she admitted that she was very scared when she learned that she had suddenly lost consciousness. The brunette explained that for a second it seemed to her that her heart had stopped. The girl asked with concern if everything was okay with the lady now. Smiling, the lady admitted that she sincerely hoped for this. Laughing, the blonde admitted that she lost consciousness on purpose and had a special way to do it. Lily explained that if she was interested, she could tell. Noticing the maid's agitation, the girl asked what had happened to her. The brunette blushed and asked her mistress never to do that again. Lily promised that she would never do anything like that again. The girl was incredibly happy that her mistress took her seriously. Having handed over a plate with a fragrant dish, the maid explained that there was warm soup there, which had already cooled down. Laughing, the mistress agreed to eat the fragrant dish. Lily stared at her plate, remembering the Duke's words. It was very unusual for the girl that he asked to call him by his name. The blonde remembered that sometimes she called him impatiently, sometimes in despair, and sometimes in anticipation. Over time, she realized that it was pointless. Lily did not realize that her husband would soon understand how to treat her. For her, it was an illusion caused by the loss of her lover's memory, like sunlight that shines and then disappears. The brunette flipped a coin and looked closely at the tails when it landed. Theodore leaned back in his comfortable chair. The boy replayed the events of that day in his head. The blonde warned the Duke to be careful, explaining that his sister was going to faint. Hyson explained that Lily specialized in getting people's attention in this way. The guy asked why the Duke was worried about this, explaining that they would soon get divorced anyway. Noticing Theodore's bewilderment, the guy asked why he was so surprised. The blonde asked if the Duke intended to spend the rest of his life married to a woman from the Everett family. Hyson assured him that his sister would marry a bastard from the Chester family once they divorced. The blonde noted that his sister's life was truly miserable. The brother coldly suggested that they had not even spent their wedding night. The guy asked if the brunette understood what consequences awaited her if she married such a scumbag. Theodore tried to remember what he had been doing all this time. After the Duke rang the bell, a loyal servant ran up to him and asked what he wanted. The brunette ordered the man to call Kelvin and ask him to wait in the library. Entering the office, Calvin asked the gentleman if his memories had returned. The Duke looked up and answered negatively. The blonde asked why Theodore had called him. The guy explained that he needed to know what he was like before he lost his memory. The brunette asked how he behaved with Lily and what he talked about with her. The brunette asked his subject to tell him if he knew anything. Calvin asked why the gentleman needed it. The guy explained that he had already asked the servants and the manager. The brunette explained that the last thing he wanted to know was the assistant's opinion. Sitting down, the guy explained that the way the Duke communicated with Lady Lily was quite reasonable, especially for a man from the Valentino family. Calvin explained that the gentleman was very harsh towards his wife, even considering that the girl was from the Everett family. The Duke objected that his wife now bore the name Valentino. The guy shook his head in disapproval, explaining to the brunette that he had suffered in vain because of his wife. The blonde explained that the story Theodore had told him was so mysterious that it was difficult to make out what was going on. Calvin suggested that it would be better to wait until the Duke's memories returned. The assistant advised the master to try not to get close, because he might regret it. Theodore reminded him that he wanted to hear what he knew. The brunette explained that it was too late and he would have to make a decision. Calvin sighed heavily and explained that the Duke first met his wife 2 years ago in the castle of Duke Everett. Calvin explained that he knew little, but was as always busy with his duties. The assistant warned that Lily wanted to do something, which caused a problem. Some servants began to collect dead birds and rats and leave them near the Duchess's window or in front of her room. After the guy called one of the maids, she explained that they had been doing this for 6 months. The blonde realized that the girl was constantly being subjected to hidden abuse and quietly tolerated it. The boy remembered the servants whispering, trying to hide their dislike for the Duchess. The brunette realized that 2 years was a really long time. The Duke realized that if during this period one had harmed the other, would he be able to completely heal his wounds? Theodore guessed that the darkness in the girl's heart was deeper than he thought, and he was suddenly overcome by a strange conviction. The words of his strict teacher came to his mind, that the essence of suffering was in the person himself. The mentor told the boy that already having happiness in one piece of bread, people wanted more. The man explained that greed, hatred, and envy were the sources of misfortune, deepening the pain in their hearts. The teacher warned the boy that it was impossible to learn to isolate oneself from these negative emotions. Theodore wanted to ask himself before he lost his memory why he had been so cruel to his wife. The Duke tried to remember whether he had been drawn to the girl from the very first days. Theodore heard from his interlocutor that he had fallen in love with a girl and talked about the feeling he had experienced at that moment. After the first meeting, the brunette remembered every detail he had noticed. The assistant noted that the gentleman was a pervert, because few people remembered such things. The guy admitted that he went crazy when he listened to the gentleman's stories about the girl. The blonde said that despite all his feelings, he unexpectedly treated his wife cruelly. The brunette looked down and couldn't understand who could have spread such rumors, and why this whole misunderstanding could have happened. Theodore paced the corridor trying to remember what Lilia was like before he lost his memory. He realized that his wife definitely hated him. After hearing the footsteps, he suddenly raised his head. The guy could not understand why his aunt was standing there. The Duke asked his relative what brought him here. Annabella explained that she had heard that Lily had fainted and had just woken up. That was why she had come to support the girl. The brunette reminded her that she was a member of their family. Theodore assured him that his wife was going to sleep, and it would be better to visit her next time. Covering her face with her hand, the woman asked again if this was true, and expressed regret that she had missed such an opportunity. The brunette explained that she would come next time. The guy assured that he also needed to go back to the office to do some work. Annabella asked her nephew if he really still hadn't remembered his wife. After the brunette responded positively, he explained that everything was fine. The woman explained that it was not that important, and there was no need to worry about it. The aunt asked the Duke to live with the girl without changes, because she was soon to leave their family. For Theodore, the woman was the one who had taken care of him for a long time. The boy had no desire to worship the woman as the mother of this castle because of the will of the late Duchess. Owen noted that he had already heard that he had met with Lily and Theodore Valentino. His brother had muttered through his teeth that he would freeze him to death. Smoking his pipe, the blonde asked Hyson to tell him how it all went. The blonde asked his brother what he meant. Hyson realized that he could not lose so easily. The guy admitted that when he met Duke Valentino, it seemed like a completely different person was standing in front of him. The brother asked if the Duke had acted as if he had lost his memory. Hyson asked his brother to tell him what was wrong and why he had suddenly become so strange. Shaking out his cigar, Owen explained that his younger brother knew full well that whatever he did, it was for the good of the Everett family. Then the guy left the room, slamming the door furiously. The guy flared up with rage, trying to understand what those freaks were up to. Hyzen promised his brother to find out everything. Fluffy clouds floated slowly across the blue sky. The sun's rays picked out the luxurious possessions of Duke Valentino. The two were sitting at a small table with 2 mugs of tea. The burning logs were crackling comfortably in the fireplace. Having collected his thoughts, the guy asked why Lily was wearing a maid's clothes then. The girl's fragile body trembled, because she was afraid to tell about her charity and the artifact. The boy explained that on that day, the villagers reported that the son of the Everett family had taken away one of the maids of the Valentino castles. Theodore explained that the villagers said that her name was Leah. The boy explained that according to the villagers, she came to the village to distribute food and other necessary things. The brunette, noticing that his beloved was nervous, assured her that everything was fine and asked her to be frank with him. Theodore asked if his wife helped the villagers in the guise of a servant. Lily lowered her eyes because she did not want to convey the great significance of this. The Duchess did not know how her husband would react if she confessed. Lily began to worry a lot because she didn't know if her husband would be touched by the fact that she had done something good. The girl realized that most likely he wouldn't even be interested. Lily found herself thinking that maybe she wanted to know his reaction before she lost her memory. The Duchess remembered that the guy had forgotten everything he hated about her. The blonde insisted that it was her hobby. Lily explained that when she was bored she would go down to the village to give the villagers the necessary things, and there was nothing special about it. Theodore's surprised face was reflected in the mug of aromatic tea, and the guy allowed this option. The brunette asked his wife if he could ask another question. Clutching the jar tightly in his hands, the Duke explained that he had asked the pharmacist to examine the contents of the bottle. Theodore shared that there was a problem, that the medicine was made from very poisonous herbs and could harm the body if taken daily. The Duke looked at his wife with concern and asked again whether she really took this medicine every day, without missing a single dose. Charlotte asked her ladyship to forgive her. Lily coldly told her that she could not sleep, so she took her medicine every day without fail. A blue haze formed around the boy's hands, and soon the can shattered into many small particles. Theodore asked his wife never to take sleeping pills again. The blonde admitted that she had simply taken 2 pills the night before the speech. The Duke suggested that the sleeping pills had not worked well because she had developed a tolerance, and that was why she had to increase the dose. He asked where the medicine was. Lily panicked and asked what he was going to do. Sharply throwing open one of the nightstands, the guy said that he was going to burn the ill-fated sleeping pills. Soon the flasks lit up in the blue plane and only ashes remained. The brunette asked his wife to bring more if there was anything left. Lily assured him that there was nothing left. The guy asked his wife with concern if she was sure of her words and if she was lying to him. The Duchess asked why he did this, since the jars only contained sleeping pills. Theodore explained that the contents were poison, and if taken for a long time, you could die. The blonde coldly explained that she had long known about the side effects of the medicine. Lily said that the negative consequences did not bother her. The guy lowered his eyes and said that he knew how cruel he had been to her before, and that he had lost his memory. The Duke explained that they could pretend that everything was fine, but he insisted that he sincerely wanted to improve their relationship. The guy promised to do everything possible to correct his unjustified attitude towards her. Covering her face with her hand, the blonde burst into tears and her hands trembled. The girl asked what they could do to fix it. Lily dropped the mug from her hands. The Duchess asked how it was possible to fix something that had already been broken into pieces. The girl was injured by one of the fragments, and a scarlet liquid slowly flowed from her hand. Theodore noticed the blood and panic washed over him. He grabbed the girl's hand and asked her what she was doing. He noticed that there were deep cuts on her palms. Theodore realized that he needed to call someone as quickly as possible. Sharply pulling his hand away, Lily asked him to let her go. The brunette explained that it was necessary to treat the wound before it got worse. Hot drops of tears slowly flowed from the girl's eyes. After the Duchess's hand was bandaged, the doctor asked Lily to rest a little. Leaning over his wife, Theodore assured her that everything would be fine now. He slowly extended his hand to her, causing the girl to shudder. The blonde, bursting into tears, asked him to leave her, explaining that she was afraid of him. Embracing Madame Charlotte, she assured his lordship that it would be better if he left his wife's chambers. The maid promised to take care of Lily later. It was unbearably painful for the brunette to watch his wife crying in the arms of her maid. Sunlight flooded the living room, Charlotte had fallen asleep that night with her head bowed and next to her mistress. The blonde shook the maid and assumed that she was very tired. The girl looked around and asked Her Highness if everything was okay. The Duchess asked if she had sat next to her all night. The maid assured that since the girl had returned wounded and trembling, she was worried about her and decided to stay. Tears came to Charlotte's eyes. Gently touching the blonde's hand, the girl asked if everything was okay. Lily claimed that she had been a little scared yesterday. The maid asked how the Duchess had hurt her hand. The girl touched the mistress's hand with care. Looking down, the blonde assured that she had broken a cup. Charlotte noticed that this was not at all like the mistress's behavior and assumed that she was very tired. The girl carefully helped the lady to get up, explaining that she needed to eat after she washed. The brunette explained that Lily should have a proper breakfast, not just a few slices of fruit. Smiling, the blonde agreed. The very nervous maid apologized for the Duke finding the sleeping pills. Lily assured him that everything was fine, as she had long thought that you would stop taking them. The maid insisted that the sleeping pills were very harmful to health, as they contained toxins that could cause irreparable harm to the body. Lily promised to burn incense for sleep from that day on. Noticing the servant's agitation, the girl explained that it was not toxic at all and should not be harmful to health. Soon, a chair was heard at the door. A gentle female voice asked if the Duchess had changed her clothes at that moment. The girl said that her name was Jane Soff, and she was the new doctor at the estate. Jane explained that Duke Theodore had appointed her as his wife's personal physician. Smiling, the brunette explained that the Duke had instructed her to take care of the girl's health. The doctor reported that her main specialization was gynecology, but she also had experience in psychiatry. Lily wondered if the woman was taken away after the Duke regained his memory. Jennifer said that the medicine the blonde was taking could also cause infertility. Lily assured that she knew about this side effect. The woman asked if the Duchess had stopped taking sleeping pills from that day on. She assured that it was a wise decision to refuse, and suggested instead to prepare a medicine of a herbal decoction, which does not cause harm. She noted that at present the girl's health left much to be desired, and her immunity was greatly weakened. Jennifer explained that the Duchess had the health of an elderly person. The woman assured that with the right care, Lily's health could certainly improve. Having bowed, the brunette promised the Duchess to come the next day. The doctor assured her that if she suddenly felt ill, she should definitely call her. With a sigh of relief, Lilia realized that she needed a change of scenery. Looking at her maid, the girl suggested that she go with her to the library. Charlotte accepted her ladyship's offer. When the girls arrived at the library, the brunette informed Her Highness that she would stand at the other end, and asked to call her if the lady needed anything. The girl asked Charlotte to do it next to her. Having moved the chair next to her, the blonde called the maid to sit next to her. Lily knew that the brunette could read because she had grown up in a monastery and learned from the monks. It was very unusual that a maid from an orphanage could read. Because of this, Lily often brought the girl to the library and allowed her to read whatever she wanted. The brunette, very embarrassed, thanked her ladyship for the opportunity. Adelina was very wary when she heard that the Duchess and Valentino had made peace. The girl smiled falsely, trying not to lose face. The aristocrats whispered about this news, as there was much talk that the couple would soon divorce. The brunette asked her friend if it was true that the Duke had given his wife a necklace made of blue opal from Lakia. The blonde assured that she had allegedly heard that he had been very present at the auction, and had offered a huge sum for the decoration. The girl was wary, because the blue opal necklace was more than 300 years old. The jewel once belonged to a princess from Lakia, and she wore the necklace on her wedding day. The necklace disappeared more than 50 years ago, until it unexpectedly appeared at a capital auction. The girls whispered, thinking that Lady Adelina was the owner of the blue opal. The blonde asked her friend to speak more quietly because she could hear her. The girl with green hair asked if the lady would like to join them in a game of chess. The blonde with shining eyes asked Adelina if she knew anything about Duke Valentino and his wife. The girl assured that she had heard that she was the Duke's childhood friend. Adelina forced a smile and explained that they had indeed been close friends for a long time, but she did not know what was going on between the spouses. The host called on those present to pay attention to the fact that it was already mid-August. The prince explained that it was not so hot in France in the summer. He noted that Francis was an ideal place for active recreation. Smiling, the guy explained that before it was too late, they should have a real hunting festival to enjoy this wonderful time of year. Riddell said he had decided to open Ashridge Forest again this year. Blondin said he had invited the Duke and Duchess of Valentino to the festival. Horror appeared in Adelina's eyes at this news. The girl could not believe her ears. The aristocratic event was noisy. The brown-haired man raised his glass and announced that this was the first time the Valentinos would attend a hunting banquet together. The boy asked if this was wonderful news, and he explained that the fact that the Duke's family life had improved was a reason for joy. One of the girls approached and addressed Lady Adelina. The girl jumped up abruptly and invited her friends to come and greet the Crown Prince and Crown Princess. Adelina followed the brunette. The blonde ran up to the princess, explaining to her sister that she was here. The girl realized that sooner or later she would have to visit Veronica to find out if the rumors were true. The fact that Theodore suffered from temporary partial memory loss was kept secret. Lily realized that the problem was that her husband's behavior had changed dramatically. The blonde understood that it might seem to those around that everything had improved between them. The Duke thanked his wife for doing him a favor. Lily felt like she was slowly going crazy. Recently, the brunette began calling her Milady and still insisted that she call him by his first name. Since that incident, Theodore hasn't approached her often. Initially, she thought he had finally given up, but later the blonde realized that the guy was simply holding back his feelings and had been hovering around her for several days. Unexpectedly for the Duchess, the guy began to give her flowers and letters, and then leave gifts at the door of her room. Lily noticed that he had recently lost his temper and started pestering her again. The Duke said that he had a request, which was that they attend together a hunting banquet hosted by the Crown Prince. The girl agreed to this for the sake of her public image. Lily assumed that her husband had the impression that she had opened up to him a little. The blonde couldn't understand why Theodore's memories didn't start to return. The girl realized that more than a week had passed since her husband's doctor advised her to just wait. Lily was slowly going crazy. She realized that soon the boundaries of her patience would burst. The girl understood that there was nothing good because her husband did not remember her, and was essentially a completely different person. The blonde was hesitant about whether she should just forget about the past and start fixing their relationship. Lily understood that nothing would change until they faced the truth. The girl understood that her husband's tenderness was just a mirage, like a fragile sandcastle that would be destroyed by a rolling wave. The brunette reported that he had allegedly heard that the prize for winning would be the coral bracelet of Arundel, donated by the Queen. The guy enthusiastically explained that it was one of the 7 magical artifacts that was created by the magician Lockshire, who was known for his love for his daughter. The Duke explained that Lockshire was a magician who had fled to their country from distant lands. The man was made a royal magician despite the fact that Lockshire lost his wife early and was left with only a daughter. Soon the girl fell in love with the Crown Prince and became engaged to him. That lucky man was Roderick Lancier, who was currently king. After the guy was crowned Lockshire and King Roderick died, despite his love for his wife, the man began to clearly become interested in other women. The king had as many as 10 mistresses, but each of them was killed by the Queen. Lily realized that this story was widely known not only in the Kingdom of Francis, but also in neighboring countries. The blonde noted that it was very generous of the princess to give away personal belongings. Theodore said he was of the same opinion. The boy assumed it was a way to show affection for the Crown Prince. The brunette said that he really wanted to win this bracelet and give it to his lady. Theodore promised to make every effort to achieve this goal. The girl really didn't want him to call her milady with every phrase. Lily was speechless, and it seemed to her that the Duke had a split personality. The Duchess reassured herself that her husband had not been indifferent to others from the start. Lily recalled that before he lost his memory, he had felt a particular dislike for her. The blonde remembered the times when she tried with all her might to win at least a drop of his tenderness. The girl was uncomfortable that when she stopped doing this, she got love and care in this form. Lily reminded herself that she had not endured for so long for the sake of illusions. Smiling, the husband reminded the girl that she would also have to ride a horse at the banquet. Theodore suggested that his beloved train with him that evening. The blonde abruptly threw the cup on the table and explained that she was only thinking about her image, since she was his wife. Lily explained that she didn't want to build a relationship with him, and she insisted that he still made her feel uncomfortable. Resentment was boiling inside her, and it seemed to her that she was simply dying from the inside. The Duchess was still hurt by the fact that her husband had never listened to her, and now he said that he had forgotten everything. Lily coldly explained to the guy that she didn't want to expect anything from him and couldn't trust him anymore. The blonde recalled that he turned away from her when she asked for help, and simply watched from the side as her brothers tortured her. The girl coldly reminded him that she had already said more than once that you can't fix something that's already broken into pieces. Bitter tears appeared on Lily's face. The blonde asked what he could do with her fragments. The Duchess ordered her husband to leave. He said her name softly, trying to comprehend what had happened. Covering her face with her hands, the girl staggered, explaining that if he didn't want to leave, then she would. The blonde jumped up from her seat and ran away. The memories echoed in her ears, and every phrase he said hurt the girl. Lily couldn't forget that cold look, the sharp tone and the way he turned away from her, and how he was the first to leave the room, abandoning his wife to be torn apart by Lennon and Chester. Lily couldn't get the image of those animals devouring her with their gaze out of her head. Tears kept streaming down her snow-white cheeks. The girl understood that she was the daughter of the Everett family, and there were misunderstandings between them. But he wounded her in the very heart. Having caught up with the girl, Theodore pressed her tightly to himself, trying not to let go. The blonde wanted to hurt her husband in return. The Duke gently hugged his beloved and asked for forgiveness. Streams of water slowly flowed down the luxurious fountain. The sun painted the sky in pastel colors. Theodore asked the girl to forgive him. Gritting her teeth tightly, Lily blushed and pushed him away. The girl explained that she could not recognize the guy because he did not remember anything that happened between them. The blonde asked furiously if there was any point in his apologies and promises if he had lost his memories. Lily wondered how a person could change so much just because of memory loss. The girl recalled that her husband hated her, and asked how this feeling could disappear. Approaching his beloved, the Duke assumed that there had been a misunderstanding between them and promised to find out everything and fix it. The girl was surprised that her husband was trying to fix it and didn't remember anything. Theodore assumed that this was a second chance for him. The brunette explained that the day he injured his head and lost his memory, the first thing he felt when he saw her was undoubtedly affection. The Duchess said coldly that she did not want to hear it. The guy begged to be heard. The brunette assumed that these were his sincere feelings and admitted that some misunderstandings suppressed his affection. Lily pushed the guy away with anger and asked him not to talk nonsense. The blonde remembered that she had never felt anything like this from her husband. The Duchess revealed that she was nothing more to him than Everett's own family, and lived like a dead person, refusing everything. Lily saw divorce from Theodore as her only future, after which she would fall into the clutches of Lennon Chester. The girl planned that when this happened, she would simply commit suicide because she did not want to live. The Duchess realized that Charlotte was the only one who hoped that she would choose a different path. The brunette repeatedly suggested that the mistress run away from all this. At that moment, the maid suggested that Lily go to a place where no one would find them. And she explained that if you go by boat to the eastern continent, you can find a place to hide and live like another person. The maid promised Lily to help her always be by her side. The blonde was thinking about accepting the offer, because she knew that Theodore's command had grown stronger, and the Valentino family was on the road to recovery. Lily knew it was time for her to stop worrying about Everett's plans and just disappear. The Duchess asked her husband what would happen if the memories returned before he found out what the misunderstanding was between them. The brunette assured him that it would be for the best, because he would immediately understand what the problem was. The girl asked what would happen if he forgot the time he spent unconscious. The Duchess asked what if there were only misunderstandings between them. Pulling her hand away, she asked him to accept her choice. The girl explained that the conversation was pointless. The blonde admitted that she had already seen how her life would unfold. That's why she didn't have the strength to resist. Lily insisted that she simply didn't want to do anything. The girl fell helplessly to her knees and began to sob. Sitting down next to his beloved, Theodore promised to try so that someday she could completely trust him. For the blonde, his words sounded completely meaningless, because the trust between them no longer had any meaning. A few days later, Lily learned that several servants had been fired. The brunette had found out for the mistress that those who had incited the team to bullying had been fired. The Duchess realized that everyone who spread rumors about her or treated her badly were punished with Theodore's help. The blonde was annoyed because she was going to deal with the girls herself, and he just wasted his time. Charlotte raised her little fists and assured him that she planned to take revenge with her own hands. The Duchess noticed that Charlotte had a surprisingly warlike character. The blonde realized that if her maid was a knight or a mercenary, she would have succeeded. The girl anxiously reported that this was not what the mistress had asked for. The brunette said that Lord Hyson had been doing something strange lately. The maid said that people had seen arms dealers coming and going from the boy's estate. Lily asked how things were going with Owen. The brunette told him that a new mage had recently joined him, and that the mage's influence seemed to coincide with the time when the Duke had injured his head. The girl said that about a week before the Duke's departure, the mage was under the Lord's command. Lily was not at all surprised by this outcome of events. The blonde realized that it was strange from the very beginning that a minor head injury caused partial memory loss. Charlotte asked excitedly if the lady thought that what happened to the Duke was staged. Lily explained that her family would not sit back and watch the Valentinos regain their influence. The blonde decided to thoroughly investigate how her husband had been injured. She decided that it was worth studying the records of that time and meeting with the commander of the Knights. Lily was sure that he was responsible for the documents on military affairs. The blonde, however, did not know the necessary person. The Duchess began to think about just giving up. Charlotte asked her how she could do that, but the blonde thought it was a waste of time. Lily was sleeping. Hearing a knock on the door, Charlotte asked who was standing behind the door. The maid explained that her ladyship was currently resting. A calm voice came from behind the door. The servant Albert asked the lady to receive guests. The guy said that Mrs. Seymour was away, and therefore the Duchess would have to receive the guest. Raising her sleepy face from the soft pillow, the blonde asked who was making noise there. Charlotte explained that it was Lady Adeline Albinus who had arrived to visit. The girl quickly put herself in order and quickly walked along the authentic corridor. The maid asked if she could go talk to the commander of the Knights. Charlotte assured that she could tell the man that the Duchess would like to meet him. The Duchess noticed that she was quite smart. The brown-haired woman quickly realized that the lady wanted to meet the commander-in-chief. Lily asked the maid to convey a message to the Knight commander as soon as possible. The blonde asked Charlotte to return to the living room as soon as she finished. With a cheerful smile, the girl ran to carry out the mistress's order. The Duchess suggested that if Mrs. Seymour was not present, then she would not have to be careful. The girl understood that she had to take the initiative while the woman was not in the estate. Lily guessed that the girl came to visit to check if the rumors were true. The blonde understood that Adelina had warm feelings for Theodore. Lily knew that she often visited Valentino's castle to meet her friend, and always behaved friendly towards him as if showing off. The blonde understood that she was endlessly disappointed deep down. The girl noticed that Theodore had not shown any interest in her lately. For Lily's husband, the girl was no more than a childhood friend or acquaintance. The Duke treated Adeline with slight irritation and slight annoyance. The blonde understood that even to a stranger like her this was noticeable. The girl suggested that this was precisely why her rival was so persistent. Lily rejoiced imagining her rival's face when the rumors were confirmed. The blonde was very interested to see what kind of perverted image was hidden behind the mask of the kind and sweet Adelina. Lily knew that she also had a bad temper, but the girl understood that it was her environment that made her like that. A girl with pink hair and a modest smile on her face was already sitting in the living room. Putting a feigned smile on her face, Adelina exclaimed that they had not seen each other for a long time, and assured that she was very happy about this meeting. The blonde greeted the lady coldly. The girl asked why she addressed her so formally and asked to call her simply Dolly. The guest's face darkened when she saw the jewelry on her rival's neck. Adelina claimed that she was wondering how the blonde was doing lately. The girl explained that because of this she decided to stop by. The girl said that she heard that Miss Seymour and Theo had left. She claimed that she would really like to meet the guy. The Duchess specially wore an opal necklace. Lily was surprised that her rival pretended not to know anything about him. Sitting down on a comfortable chair, the blonde said with a smile that nothing special had happened lately. Bowing, one of the maids brought a cup of hot tea. The blonde hesitantly took a small sip. Trying to break the awkward silence, Adelina said that this tea was brought from the Eastern continent as a gift. The girl asked the Duchess if she liked the drink. Lily noticed that the tea had a rather pleasant aroma. Rolling her eyes, the guest explained that this was a trifle for her, since Theodore preferred tea to alcohol. The girl admitted that she couldn't wait for his reaction and sincerely hoped that he would like it. In response to such impudence, the blonde just smiled. Lily noticed that she was subtly demonstrating intimacy with her husband in her own presence. The Duchess understood that those who have difficulty controlling their anger may lose their self-control and say unnecessary things. The blonde was aware that this could make her look inadequate for no reason. The girl expected that in such a case Adelina could play on her emotions and cry. The blonde knew that her rival knew how to cleverly play the victim, making others look narrow-minded and evil. The Duchess said that trade with the Eastern continent has recently picked up. Adelina insisted that this became possible thanks to the company run by the Delacroix family, and she added that they recently laid out the shortest trade route. Duke Delacroix came from an influential family that controlled trade not only in the kingdom, but also on the continent. The aristocrat's large fortune allowed him to influence economic and political processes in the region. The Duke's domain was located at the southernmost tip of the continent. Dornac was a trading hub with a mild climate and fertile land where crops grew well. Unlike Valentino's northern lands, the south was rarely cracked. Unfortunately, this meant that the military power of the south was weakening, and therefore even one crack could cause uncontrollable damage. Lily understood that Valentino, who was used to this kind of thing, could have been refused help. Adelina explained that she had recently met Lady Rosalina at a recent party in the Cowan family's garden. The girl asked the Duchess if she had seen her in person. Lily admitted that they crossed paths several times. The Duchess remembered that it was just a greeting. The blonde realized that Lady Delacroix was too energetic a person, and they were not suitable for each other, no matter how tired she was next to her. The girl dreamily told the lady of the estate that even the crown prince was present at that party. Adelina said that His Highness had mentioned that a hunt would soon be opened, to which the Duke and Duchess of Valentino would be invited as guests of honor. Putting on a sly smile, the guest asked whether this was true. Wary, Lily realized that her rival was testing her. The blonde muttered through clenched teeth that the crown prince had told their lordships to come to the party. One of the maids suddenly ran into the room and informed her ladyship that she urgently needed to tell her something. The Duchess asked Gina what was the matter. The brunette insisted that they needed to hurry to the hall. When the girls left the guest room, Jenna said that Mrs. Seymour had returned to the estate about 10 minutes ago and was interrogating Charlotte. The blonde, not paying attention to the uncomfortable shoes, quickly rushed along the long corridor. The mistress asked the girl why Annabella was interrogating Charlotte. The maid admitted that she saw everything from afar, so she did not know the details. Hanging over the poor man, several workers tried to force the maid to tell the truth. One of the colleagues noticed that the brown-haired woman was the only one who entered the commander's office, and she asked Charlotte who, in her opinion, could steal the jewel. Raising her ruby eyes, the girl explained that they were mistaken. The maid asked why she had to steal the gold jewelry of the Knight Commander. Hiding behind the door, Lily realized that her friend was in trouble while carrying out her instructions. The Duchess was sure that Charlotte did not steal the jewelry, and there were two among those present who could have done it. The girl ordered through gritted teeth to leave. The mistress asked the maid if she wanted a confession to be knocked out of her. Taking the rod, the woman ordered Charlotte to climb onto the chair and lift her dress. The blonde could not see how she was going to whip her maid without any evidence of her guilt. Lily was furious that the woman would go that far. She could not allow this because the brown-haired woman was her personal servant, and they had a close relationship. The girl understood that if Charlotte was framed and forced to leave the castle, she herself would find herself completely alone, which would extremely limit her freedom of action. The Duchess assumed that this was precisely what Mrs. Seymour wanted. She knew that her mother-in-law had been isolating her for the past few years and watching while pretending to play by the rules. The blonde realized that the woman did it so carefully that Theodore didn't even notice. The Duchess speculated that Mrs. Seymour saw the incident as an opportunity, or was behind it all from the start. The girl ordered the commander of the knights to be brought. Jenny was a little taken aback and asked if she needed to do this now. Mrs. Seymour ordered the maid to climb onto the chair at the same moment. The blonde burst into the room and asked what this meant. The Duchess's face was stern and unshakable. Annabella noticed that the girl arrived just in time because her maid had stolen the gold jewelry of the Knight Commander. The woman claimed that Charlotte continues to deny, and that is why she is interrogating her. The maid assured that they did not steal anything, and she ran behind her mistress with tears in her eyes. The Duchess coldly inquired whether there was evidence of the woman's accusation. The blonde said that they had a witness in the form of Serena. Annabella asked the girl to tell her what she saw. Lowering her eyes, the girl said that she was responsible for cleaning the commander's room. The maid claimed that about 20 minutes ago she went to clean up and saw Charlotte coming out. Serena assured that this seemed strange to her, and she was going to report to the commander when he arrived to prepare for departure. The maid claimed that at that moment she came into the office to talk about Charlotte, and the commander said that his gold jewelry was missing. With her hand on her heart, Serena assured that she allegedly believed that Charlotte had stolen the jewelry. The girl explained that she saw Charlotte enter the captain's office shortly before the item disappeared. Lily's eyes flashed with rage. She asked if she was the only witness, and she doubted how they knew that the accuser herself was not a thief who had made up a story to frame Charlotte. The Duchess recalled that Charlotte initially had a higher salary than a typical maid. The blonde explained that in this situation, it was not difficult to guess who exactly stole the commander's jewelry. Serena's hands trembled and her body became covered with drops of sweat. Raising her tone, Annabella asked the girl to shut up. The blonde asked the woman if she had finished searching the maids. The girl suggested that this was the first thing they should have done. The lady chuckled that she considered this unnecessary since they had a witness. Lily suggested that she might actually be a criminal. The blonde assured that they should search everyone, starting with those gathered at this place. The brown-haired woman asked if this was necessary. The woman shared that she was more interested in the reason why Charlotte entered the commander's office. Lily explained that the maid did this on her orders. The Duchess asked if it seemed strange that Charlotte, sent on her behalf, stole jewelry from the commander's office. Lily recalled that the brown-haired woman was in the office on the orders of the Duchess. The girl ordered each of the maids in turn to come forward for a search. With trembling hands, Charlotte felt the accuser's petticoat. The girl was surprised to pull out a gold jewelry with a central sky-blue stone. Breaking into a scream, one of the workers asked Serena how she dared to steal and even frame someone else. The brown-haired girl suggested that you also pocketed the silver earrings that Lucy lost. The shameless maid also pocketed. The girl asked if she thought that her younger brothers and sisters would be proud of her. Lily asked Ayla to calm down, reminding her that you will not be able to hide your sins. The blonde hovered over the maid, causing her face to become covered with drops of cold sweat. Lily knew that the innocence of the witch who was burned at the stake by the Inquisitors did not matter. The girl realized that people simply needed someone to blame in order to vent their anger and gain satisfaction. The blonde knew that if you knew your enemy as yourself, then it was impossible to lose. The Duchess decided, instead of succumbing to her constant anger, to light her own fire. Lily knew that her friend inspired her to be so brave because she was no longer alone. For the Duchess, the maid was her only friend and ally and the one she was obliged to protect. It was because of this that the anger directed at Charlotte infuriated the blonde more than anything else. The blonde reminded Ayla that the proceeds from the sale of jewelry would not be enough to pay off her lover's debt. In a trembling voice, the maid asked her mistress what she meant. Lily explained that Serena stole the commander's golden item, and that she was the one who organized everything. The Duchess said that she allegedly knew that the brown-haired woman involved the thief as an accomplice in an attempt to frame Charlotte. In a trembling voice, Ayla said that she did not understand what the mistress was talking about. The girl claimed that she did nothing of the kind. Lily assured that she planned to pay off her lover's debts with money from the sale of the jewelry, but it was easier to use someone than to paint it herself. The maids in the hall began to whisper. The Duchess explained that she agreed to this because she needed money to feed 6 hungry mouths. With confidence, the blonde asked if she was right. Hanging over the criminal, Annabella asked if Isla really ordered her to commit a crime. Falling to her knees, the maid confirmed her mistress's assumption, explaining that she told her to steal something valuable from the commander. The green-haired girl claimed that she was simply following Ayla's orders. The maid said that without her, her brothers and sisters would die of hunger. The girl explained that her younger brother had recently fallen ill with pneumonia, and she could not afford the medicine on her salary. Serena begged you to forgive her. The woman quickly switched to the instigator and asked who her lover was. Mrs. Seymour clarified whether it was the brown-haired groom. Rolling her eyes, Lily realized that she definitely wouldn't answer honestly. The girl was engaged to a man whom Mrs. Seymour had selected for her. Due to the fact that Isla was from the same city as the previous Duchess, Mrs. Seymour treated her with such care that she decided to find her a groom herself. Lily suggested that the brown-haired woman, not having any feelings for her chosen one, had recently fallen in love with an actor from a traveling troupe. The blonde realized that if this had been a fleeting connection, it could have turned out much better. Lily knew that Ayla had recently found out that she was expecting a child with that man. Eventually, the maid secretly consulted the village doctor and she overheard the conversation. Having no other choice, the brown-haired woman planned to pay off the man's debts before running away. Noticing the tears on the maid's face, the woman asked what happened. Annabella promised not to scold her if she told the truth. With sobs, Ayla told what happened, Having hit the girl in the face, the mistress noticed that she was vulgar and vile. Seymour is furious that the future maid of the Valentino family not only slept with some tramp, but also became pregnant by him. Annabella sternly stated that Isla would be locked in her room and would not even leave until she allowed it. The woman told Serena that this also concerned her. Kneeling, the girl explained that she had made a mistake and pulled the mistress's skirt. Having accurately hit the dirty hand, the woman asked how she dared to touch her with her hands. Annabella ordered the maids to take the girls to their rooms and lock them up. The brown-haired woman looked after her colleagues in horror. The woman muttered through her teeth that she did not suspect that the blonde was so knowledgeable about the servants of the house. Smiling, Lily explained that as a mistress she was supposed to be aware of those who worked for her. The woman noticed that she was really busy. Annabella asked the maid to return the item to the commander. The woman asked Lily if she wanted to say anything else. The Duchess asked Mrs. Seymour not to touch her people anymore. Annabella asked in surprise what the girl said. The blonde explained that this could be considered a warning, and said that if such an incident ever happened again, she would not just stand by and watch. The girl looked at Annabella with a contemptuous look and warned that she knew a lot. But the woman hit Lily in the face with all her might, and asked how she could boldly say something like that. The area quickly became red from the beating. The blonde was surprised that this would offend Mrs. Seymour so much. Theodore froze in horror as he watched what was happening. The blonde burst into tears and turned to his lordship in a pitiful voice. Approaching his aunt, the brunette asked what all this meant. In a trembling voice, the woman explained to her nephew that this was not what he was thinking. Approaching his beloved, the Duke noticed that the girl's face was completely swollen. He said that you need to quickly apply cold. Lily assured that nothing serious had happened to her. Turning sharply to his aunt, the guy asked why she hit his wife. Annabella said in a trembling voice that there was a good reason for it. Hanging over the brown-haired girl, the guy reminded that under no circumstances is it acceptable to raise a hand against Lady Valentina, regardless of her position in this house. Theodore said that he sincerely hoped that this would not happen again. The guy reminded me that he didn't throw like the wind and asked me to keep this in mind. Lily wondered what would happen if something like this happened again. The Duchess was aware of the influence of women in this castle. Therefore, the husband did not take serious measures. Annabella begged him to listen to her. The Duke said that he was leaving with his wife. Mrs. Seymour watched her nephew go. While examining the lady, the doctor asked whether her cheek hurt badly. Covering her face with her hand, Lily assured that everything was fine. The brown-haired woman nervously asked the woman whether she should apply ice. Jane said that when the medicine takes effect, it is worth maintaining the compress 30 minutes before bedtime. The doctor suggested that this procedure would not need to be done the next day. The brown-haired woman explained that at the moment, her ladyship would not be able to take any medications other than those she had prescribed. Theodore's face darkened sharply. Watching her husband, the blonde could not understand why his face was so sharply distorted. Sharply opening the door, the maid crossed eyes with the brunette. The guy was very embarrassed. Taking out a gold medal from a small pocket, Charlotte handed it to him with a smile. The commander-in-chief awkwardly thanked the girl for her help. The brunette blushed and said that he had urgent matters to attend to and needed to go. Turning to the Duke, Charlotte heard rather unexpected words. Theodore sincerely thanked the girl for her hard work. Such praise made her heart burst out of her chest. The guy noticed that it was better for Lily to return to her room and rest. The Duke promised to take care of the rest. Looking down, the blonde said that Lady Albinus was waiting for him in the living room. The girl explained that she did not feel well, and was forced to rest and asked to convey her apologies to the guest. Theodore asked his wife not to worry about the guest, explaining that she needed a good rest. The guy wished his wife a good rest. After I left the room, the maid anxiously asked the mistress if her cheek hurt. Collapsed onto the soft bed, Lily assured that everything was fine and asked for a cup of hot tea. Soon a mug with a fragrant drink stood in front of the girl. With her eyes downcast, Charlotte said that she was waiting for the commander in his office and left 10 minutes later because he did not return. The girl suggested that the commander had to urgently accompany Theodore, who returned to the castle. Lily assumed that he had asked Charlotte to go to his office first. The girl was sure that he did not return after the promised time and her maid left. The Duchess assumed that the guy's affairs took longer than he expected, and then the theft occurred. Lily was sure that Serena and Ada sneaked into the office, and after they saw the maid, a plan matured in their heads. The girl was sure that by the time the commander returned to his place, the crime had already been committed. The blonde felt that if Jenna had not rushed to her with this news, Mrs. Seymour would have spanked Charlotte. Lily noticed that the woman wanted to beat Charlotte without any evidence. The Duchess admitted that just this thought made her blood boil. The brown-haired woman thanked the girl, explaining that she wanted to go to the garden and pick some flowers. The maid suggested that the lady would feel better as soon as she saw fresh plants. Soon on a small table there were bright yellow flowers that resembled the color of the sun. Delicate petals slowly fell onto the table. Lily asked the commander-in-chief if he had noticed anything suspicious at the time of the Duke's memory loss. The guy admitted that many monsters burst out of the crack that day. Lily informed the maid that they were finished. Very nervous, the brown-haired man asked if the lady would mind going for a walk next week. The Duchess noticed that the commander of the Knights was infatuated with Charlotte from the very beginning. The guy was very nervous waiting for an answer. But after the maid refused with a bow, he became very gloomy. The girl explained that she would be busy because she had to constantly be near her mistress. A barely noticeable smile appeared on the Duchess's face. The Duchess was wary, because rumors were spreading around the castle that Mrs. Seymour had slapped her in the face. Lily was sure that someone was secretly watching the incident. The girl knew that Ayla was expelled from the castle, and Serena received a probationary period. The blonde suggested that Theodore did not punish the culprit too harshly because she had fallen under the influence of Ayla. The brown-haired woman asked the mistress if she would respond to Albinus's letter. The girl assured that this was not necessary, since they would meet soon. Lily asked for another pink feather instead. The maid fussed around looking for a new item for the perfect look. Soon Charlotte carefully inserted a feather into her mistress's hat. The brown-haired woman nervously asked the Duchess if she needed anything else. The girl assured that this was enough and explained that it was time for them to hit the road. The workers bowed to see the lady off. The blonde smirked as she thought it was funny that Theodore would soon come to his senses and change his attitude again. Lily realized that her husband would not continue to show her favor. The girl walked with measured steps through the luxurious garden, accompanied by her friend. Bowing, Theodore offered to help Milady and asked for forgiveness for being late. The brunette carefully extended a helping hand to her. The Duchess hesitantly extended her hand to her husband. The blonde looked into his sky-blue eyes, which remained so even in cloudy weather. The girl remembered the times when she liked those eyes. Lily was sure that if she thought the same now, she would sooner hit her head on the carriage. The brunette noticed that the swelling on her cheek had subsided. The guy said that he was sincerely glad that the chosen one did not have a scar. The Duchess was furious that he considered her his toy. Lily couldn't understand how this man could be so sweet, since just a few months ago he didn't listen to her story and acted heartlessly. The girl realized that it did not matter to her that Theodore had lost his memory at the moment. She was sure that this was completely absurd. A wave of anger rose in the blonde's heart. The Duchess could hardly suppress this feeling within herself, controlling herself. Waving his hand towards the carriage, the brunette invited his wife to sit in the carriage. The Duke explained that he had chosen the more convenient one, and he assured that his beloved should not have any problems during the trip. The brunette helped her sit more comfortably. Entering the carriage, Lily noticed the presence of another person. The commander-in-chief said that he sat next to her just in case. The guy explained to her that he had to be there to protect the Duchess. When Charlotte opened the carriage door, she was taken aback to see an old acquaintance. Knocking on a small window, the woman said that if everyone is ready, then they go. An unexpected flash of bright magical energy blinded the blonde for several moments. Smiling, Charlotte handed her ladyship the gloves. The crew soon arrived at Ashridge Forest. It was a luxurious estate with a magnificent garden, surrounded by forest. Having hugged his chosen one by the waist, Theodore said that she should go there. Aristocrats began to discuss the veracity of the rumors and carefully observe the spouses. Lily was furious that the gossip had spread so quickly. The prince asked who would win this hunting festival. The brunette quickly noticed the guests of honor. The guy noticed that the Duchess looked even worse than last time, and she should take care of her health. Lily forced a smile and remembered that she had seen the prince last winter. In the kingdom of Francis, the summers were not too hot, but the winters were very cold. Temperatures remained at low levels until mid-April. The crown prince visited Valentino Castle at the end of March, when real cold reigned in the domain. On that visit, the brunette wanted to catch white-haired foxes from the forest to give the skins to the princess. As a result of the last hunt, Theodore gave the ruler 3 foxes out of the 6 he caught. The red-haired girl asked the Duchess if she could ride a horse. The new acquaintance carefully invited Lily to relax inside the estate. Smiling, the blonde assured that she would be fine. The Duchess sincerely thanked her for the concern on the part of Her Highness. The girl insisted on her own. She recalled that Duchess Valentino, if she is overtired, can say so at any time. Approaching his wife, Theodore complimented her image with a blood-red stone. The Duke explained that the jewel contained his spiritual power. The brunette explained that it was unlikely that anything would happen, but the artifact would protect her in unforeseen circumstances. Lily lowered her bright eyes to the new accessory and discreetly thanked her husband. The aristocrats began to discuss that the Duke had indeed begun to care about his wife. One of the men explained that he did not believe it until he saw it with his own eyes. It was unbearably disgusting for the Duchess to be the object of gossip. The blonde was sure that among the guests there were those who were betting on when she would get a divorce. The girl knew nothing more disgusting than trying to profit from someone else's misfortune. Lily's pupils shrank when she saw her brothers. The prince warmly greeted the noble lords of Everett. Having embraced his wife, Theodore tried to take her away. The blonde felt someone else's gaze on her besides Heeson. The girl noticed a figure in a dark robe that covered the stranger's entire face. Lily looked at this guest. The madman's eyes were filled with blood. Charlotte quietly reported to her ladyship that the man was Lord Owen's new magician. The blonde remembered that the period when the magician joined her brother coincided with the time when Theodore injured his head. Lily remembered that there was nothing unusual in the military records she had recently checked. The blonde found it very strange that the number of monsters that escaped from the crack was huge. The creatures were very ferocious, and the girl had a bad feeling. Smiling, the brother asked Lily how she felt today. The Duke said through gritted teeth that everything was fine with their married couple, and thanked them for their attention. Smirking, Owen noticed that the brunette liked his gift. Lily was wary because she had never heard of gifts from her brother. In a whisper, the Duke promised to tell her about this later after the banquet. With a radiant smile, the blonde ran up to her sister. The jumping girl asked Jana to hurry up. The guy smiled and said that he was already on his way. The prince said that the prize for victory would be a coral bracelet. The brown-haired man invited the guests to start the hunting banquet. The guy asked the participants to go forward and the spectators to move away. The blonde hesitantly placed her fragile hand on the saddle. A few moments later, Lily easily jumped onto the horse. Approaching his wife, the guy said that the knights would accompany her and assured that everything would go smoothly. Theodore asked the Duchess to be careful and not take off the brooch he had given her. After receiving an affirmative answer from his wife, the brunette smiled uncertainly. The Duke gently stroked the chestnut horse's back. Lily's face darkened when her rival invited her. Adeline asked the Duchess who would win the competition. The girl said that she bet on Theodore. Smiling, the blonde said that she also bet on her husband. One of the participants explained that the Duchess will be rooting for her husband, and this is already obvious. Moving away from the gossipers, Lily noticed that she had no sense of tact at all. The Duchess, urging her horse on, tried to keep up with Mrs. Seymour. The horses followed the forest paths at a calm pace. The blonde noticed that it was full of insects. The queen noticed that Lily was armed to the teeth. Elamil invited the girl to try it and handed her a small bottle of perfume. The woman explained that if she found the smell pleasant, she could spray the scent on herself. The queen assured that in this way there would be significantly fewer insects. Lily accepted the gift with embarrassment. The blonde noticed that the current Queen Elamil seemed quite nice, but in fact she was a terrible person. Lily knew that Her Highness was generous and harmless towards weak creatures that needed to be protected, but at the same time, she is infinitely cruel to those who harm her. One example of those whom the Queen does not trust is Adeline. Lily knew that she knew what kind of nature was hidden behind the girl's mask. The brown-haired girl noticed that every day the girl looked worse and worse, and asked what happened to her health. Smiling, the blonde assured that she shouldn't have worried. The Duchess could not understand why recently many people were interested in her condition. Looking around, the Crown Princess noticed that despite the fact that they had gone far, they still had not seen a single rabbit. The girl assumed that those who walked in front took all the loot. Wary, the blonde assumed that she was the only one who felt something. Lily knew that she should be on her guard just in case, since Owen's magician aroused her suspicion. Abruptly, until this moment, the calm horse tried to throw off its rider. Suddenly and unreasonably rearing up, the girl grabbed the reins with all her might, trying to calm the violent horse. The princess nervously asked Lily how she felt. The Duchess asked Lady Albinus if she had felt anything. The blonde asked Her Highness to stop, explaining that they could not go further. Soon the woman approached the crack. Fear appeared in the brown-haired woman's eyes. The boys ordered the queen and princess to take their horses to safety. The brown-haired man could not understand why it formed in Ashridge Forest, since there was no crack season at the moment. Those present on the walk were horrified, because nothing like this had ever happened in this area. Adeline asked the Duchess when she realized this. The blonde explained that she felt as if space was being warped. Looking at Lily in surprise, the girl explained that this was impossible, since only those who had made a contract with the spirit could feel it. Soon the crack began to rapidly expand and a massive clawed paw peeked out. The monster tore space with its claws and looked at the fragile girls with its blood-red eye. Soon the monster tore open the space and finally showed its face. One of the knights ordered his colleagues to take positions and not retreat. The girl, having fallen from her horse, sat in front of the creature, which thirsted for bloodshed. The cracks began to quickly spread like dark spots in the middle of the blue sky. With tears in his eyes, the man begged for his life to be saved. The monster grabbed the aristocrat in its clawed paw. One of the knights, tightly clutching his sword in his hand, ordered to immediately fire a signal flare. The guy explained that he urgently needed to report this to the crown prince. With horror in his eyes, the brown-haired man explained that they were faulty and they had tried more than once. One of the creatures quickly devoured the aristocrat. Scarlet drops splashed across the ground. Adelina ordered everyone to stand behind her, promising to drive away the creatures with magic. The Duchess was wary because she knew that the only force that could defeat demons was the power of the spirit. Lily knew that with the help of strong magic it was possible to weaken or even take life, but the crack through which the demons broke through could only be closed by the power of the spirit. Due to incidents like this, every province had to have a person who made a contract with the spirit. Lily knew that in the Albinese line of magicians, there were no direct descendants who were capable of something like that. The Duchess knew that Adeline was a legitimate daughter, which meant that she could use magic. The girl realized that resisting the monsters was not so easy. One of the aristocrats called out to the noble lady, asking if she could really do something like that. Lily couldn't believe her eyes when she saw the red color slowly enveloping her rival. The girl knew that the magical power changed color depending on the spell being cast. Red in most cases denoted attacking spells. Magical energy shot out like arrows towards the creatures. To the great regret of those present, the magic arrows reflected from the demon's head without causing any damage to him. The monster looked around at those present with his only ruby eye. Soon the demon let out a menacing roar and opened his mouth with many bloody fangs. The Duchess, in a panic, realized that the concentration of magical energy was too low. The monster extended its massive paw towards the queen. The blonde bravely defended those present using her body like a human shield. Lily covered those present with her body, but the magic pendant given by Theo sharply released blue energy. The girl noticed that most demons were afraid of the pure power of spirits. Clutching the pendant tightly, the blonde realized that its strength would not last long. Lily understood that she had to wait for help. In a trembling voice, the princess asked how long the blonde could hold out. She muttered through her teeth that she was not sure, and hoped that her strength would be enough at least until the arrival of a detachment of knights. Lily could not understand what kind of strange feeling was inside her soul. The Duchess was not frightened or disturbed by this. The girl realized that her power was trying to help. Lily froze with her eyes wide open and could not believe that the spirit of the forest was standing in front of her. The Duchess knew that since time immemorial, spirits have lived in all natural areas. The blonde knew that in the ancient forests, there were many tree spirits that formed a special colony. The Duchess read that they did not speak the language of people, because words and writing were created by people to communicate with each other, and this had nothing to do with the language of nature. Lily knew that an ordinary person, not sensitive to spirits like her, would not be able to speak to them. A gentle voice asked the girl if she needed help. The Duchess froze, not understanding what was happening. For a few moments, the blonde plunged into a completely different forest, which was full of calm. A few moments later, Lily woke up in her reality. The girl begged the spirit to lend her that power. The roots of the trees began to quickly wrap around the body of the creature, splashing their blood. Adelina stood frozen and watched in amazement as the creatures died one after another. The girl quickly retreated so as not to stain her soft pink dress with splashes of scarlet liquid. The Duchess's consciousness began to rapidly become cloudy. The girl was surprised that she lasted so long. Lily felt as if she was not just losing consciousness, but as if someone was dragging her. Snatches of phrases reached the girl very vaguely. Hanging over the mistress, the brown-haired woman asked if she had woken up. Lily asked in a hoarse voice to bring her a glass of water. Theodore could not find a place for himself sitting outside the room. As soon as Charlotte informed the gentleman that the girl had woken up, he suddenly jumped up and moved towards his wife. Theodore asked his beloved if she was feeling better. The blonde couldn't believe that he could genuinely care about her. The girl nervously asked how long she spent unconscious and whether the others were safe. The Duke said the blonde lay unconscious for more than 6 hours. The guy said that those whom she protected were unharmed, but among the knights there were wounded and dead. He said that there were losses in the units of all aristocratic families, but most of all, the royal knights and Valentino's guards suffered. The blonde was aware that there was a memorial service to take place and she had to attend. She stood up unsteadily on shaking legs. Theodore asked his wife to lie down and rest. The Duchess assured that she was perfectly fine. The guy continued to insist on his point. Lily snapped coldly that she was fine. After some time of such arguments, the blonde lost her temper and, breaking into a scream, asked why the hell he contradicted her. The girl explained that this was her duty as a representative of the Valentino family. Lily told her husband that they would see each other at the wake. The Duke sadly saw her off. Dark clouds covered the sky, and a gusty wind tore off the leaves of the trees. The weather seemed to predict that this was the calm before the storm. The Duke knelt at the monument to fallen soldiers. The guy put a small basket on the stove in memory of the heroes. The ceremony of remembering those who died at the hands of monsters was very important for both ordinary people and aristocrats. It was believed that if the deceased did not receive proper consolation, then the RN could become an evil spirit. It didn't matter whether this belief was true or not, but honoring the memory was a holy thing. Lily glanced briefly at her brother, who had a smirk on his face. The Duchess quickly looked away. Theodore noticed that the girl did not look well. The blonde assured that everything was fine. Owen asked his sister how she was feeling. The Duchess calmly said that she had no serious injuries and thanked her for her concern. The blonde noticed that that magician did not come to the wake. Owen asked if he could pick Lily up for a word. The Duke explained that this would be difficult and asked the guy to speak at this place. The Lord grinned and asked why Theodore refused him. The blonde claimed that he just wanted to talk to his little sister. The brunette explained that he could get the answer to this question from Lord Hyson. The girl snatched her hand from her husband's and went to her brother. Lily asked her husband not to worry and promised that it would not take much time. With a malicious grin, the Lord extended his hand. The blonde followed the guy along long corridors. The brother reminded the girl that it was time for her to prepare for a divorce from Theodore. Lily waited for him to raise such a sensitive topic. The Duchess said that she must obey if such was her brother's wish. The girl remembered that over the past year and a half she had not brought any benefit as the Duchess of Valentino. Lily realized that she had not obtained any necessary information for her brother and could not win Theodore's heart. The girl realized that Owen began to think about other benefits from her. The blonde understood that she would be sold to Lennon Chester. Lily realized that the guy's family could give up some of their lands and troops, which would be a profitable deal for Everett. The Duchess understood that the Chester family had no reason to refuse. The girl understood that because of Lennon's notoriety, his passion for lewdness, no one wanted to marry him. Lily knew that he would definitely accept the offer with open arms. The blonde noticed that his sister had sensitivity to perfume, or that it suddenly appeared. The girl assured that it was just an accident. The Lord asked again in surprise. Owen said that there are very rarely moments when loved ones of spirit contracts become sensitive. The blonde explained that this only happened when the contractor was sincerely attached to the person. The guy noticed that Valentine had become much more favorable towards his wife, which was rare for his character. Tightly gripping his sister's hair, Owen asked if he had hit his head lately. Amethyst eyes sparkled in the twilight. The Duchess said that this did not matter to her. The blonde asked what Duke Valentino himself thought about this. Theodore, who stood for his wife, asked whether the guest had finished talking with his sister. The man said that Her Highness was looking for them. Owen assumed that they wanted to reward his sister for saving the queen and princess. The blonde noticed that the girl lived to see very interesting times. The guy noticed that no one would have thought that Lily would accomplish some kind of feat. Cuddling close to her husband, the blonde explained that life was full of surprises. She told her brother that it was time for them to go. The Duchess argued that Her Majesty should not be kept waiting. Lily did not want to come into conflict with her brother on this special day, especially over trifles. The husband worriedly asked if the guy had insulted the girl. The Duke suggested that perhaps it only seemed to him that she was apparently accustomed to such an attitude. Theodore asked with concern if everything was okay. The blonde remembered that the guy didn't care at first. Lily wondered how her wife would react to such words. She realized that there was no point in talking about it. The girl coldly explained that in any case it did not bother her and asked her husband not to interfere. Drops of cold sweat appeared on the brunette's face. The guy asked his lover to wait a few more moments. Theodore was taken aback when he looked into eyes full of contempt and hatred. Soon the Valentino couple came out in public, holding hands tightly. The Duchess felt uncomfortable when she felt other people's gazes on their hands. The blonde felt her aversion to his touch lessen significantly. This realization greatly cooled Lily's feelings. The girl, holding her husband's hand tightly, walked towards Her Highness. Smiling, the woman said that she was very glad that they finally met. Having bowed in a curtsy, Lily turned to Her Highness. The woman asked the blonde how she felt. The brown-haired woman admitted that she was very scared when the Duchess fell unconscious. The Queen explained that her experiences were negligible compared to what the blonde's husband felt. Smiling, Lily thanked Her Highness. Elamel thought that the savior didn't look good, and suggested getting straight to the point. The brown-haired woman explained that the winner of the hunting banquet could not be determined, but they had someone who made a huge contribution to the event. Smiling, the woman explained that because of this, she decided to present the coral bracelet to the Duchess of Valentino. Her Highness recalled that the girl saved her princess and other people. Elamel placed the jewel on the graceful hand of the savior. Bowing deeply, Lily said that she was deeply grateful for Her Highness's kindness. Enthusiastic applause rang out in the hall. Coming out of the crowd, the man asked how the Duchess could contact the forest spirit. The brown-haired man explained that as far as he knew, Lily was not sensitive to magic. Looking at each other, the aristocrats began to discuss this information. Standing in front of his wife, Theodore said that he, as a contractor, could explain this. The guy explained that whoever was attached to people like him sometimes gained sensitivity to spirits. The brunette noted that his wife was a direct example of this. People began to discuss this news with even greater enthusiasm. The Duke reported that sensitivity to perfumes, as far as he knew, did not arise so easily. The guy hesitated a little, trying to explain the reason why his wife gained the ability. Theodore realized that his feelings for the blonde were much deeper than it seemed. The Queen explained that in her opinion, the couple were extremely close. Elamel said that she had something to talk about with the Duke. She asked if she could talk to him that night. When the couple left the public, the guy explained that he was sure that it would be better this way, but he put her in an uncomfortable position. The darkened brunette asked for forgiveness. The Duke told his wife that he did not want to cause her any trouble. Theodore quickly left, leaving the blonde alone with her thoughts. Lying down in a cozy bed, the blonde sighed with relief, realizing that it was all over. The Duchess was very glad that her brothers did not start nagging again. The girl remembered Heason's gaze and could not understand why he always looked at her with such contempt. The blonde remembered Adelina's look and realized that she had changed her attitude towards her. Lily covered herself with a warm blanket and reminded herself that this was not her business. The girl remembered that her husband was with the crown prince and will not return until tomorrow morning. Lily realized that she had no place to call home. Moonlight penetrated the room. The incense in the bowl burned. The Duchess dreamed that the spirit of the forest helped her fight the creature. The girl jumped up sharply from her soft bed and looked around. Realizing that everything was fine, the blonde decided to drink a mug of hot tea. The Duchess looked out the window and saw something suspicious. Sitting near the window, the blonde carefully watched the clot of magical energy. The sharp creak of the door behind her made the blonde flinch. Tired after negotiations, Theodore tenderly whispered his beloved's name. The Duke explained that he went for a walk to sober up, however. Without finishing, the brunette fell into the arms of his beloved. Lily noticed that he drank too much. In a trembling voice, the guy asked for forgiveness for such a look. Theodore said that he felt that he would not be able to sleep that day, and would not be able to control himself. Before the Duke's eyes, there was a picture of how many warriors fell due to a crack that suddenly appeared. The forest clearing where the battle took place was drenched in blood. With dissatisfaction, the Duchess muttered that nothing more needed to be said. The girl asked her husband if he could get up on his own. Lily sat not far from the guy, carefully peering into his exhausted face. The girl assumed that she must have heard something after the hunting banquet. The Duchess asked what gift her elder brother had sent her. Rolling his eyes, Theodore said that there was nothing special in the gift, and he just sent some strange picture. The guy said that Derek checked and said that there was no suspicious magic. The brunette said that now that gift was in the warehouse. Lily thought about it, because she knew that Owen was one of those who did things with a specific purpose. The girl understood that her brother was probably up to something. Theodore reported that the Lord had sent a bottle of strong alcohol. The blonde asked her husband if he drank the contents. The guy assured that he threw away the gift. The Duchess asked with uncertainty whether her husband remembered at least something about Owen or Hyson. Lily remembered that the brunette had partially or completely forgotten the people who were associated with her. The blonde remembered that the Duke could not remember Charlotte. Covering his face with his hand, Theodore explained that he remembered that those guys were supposedly his beloved's half-brothers. The brunette noticed that they were very angry, unlike her. Lily recalled that she was also from the Everett family. The Duke explained that everything is not as she thinks. The girl stood up abruptly and headed towards the cabinet. She abruptly opened one of the drawers and handed Theodore a small box and asked him to take the jewelry. A little confused, the Duke asked his beloved why she gave him a magical instrument. Lily recalled that Arendelle's coral bracelet contained powerful magic that could quickly restore the wearer's wounds, even if they were deep and deadly. The blonde understood that the magical item was only a tool to heal physical injuries, so he would not be able to restore his memory. The girl explained that she did not need the artifact. Lily suggested that it would be much more useful to the Duke. The guy stopped his beloved, explaining that it would be better if the gift stayed with her. The Duke assured that nothing would happen to him, and that what had happened before was a rarity. However, the possibility that this would happen again could not be ruled out. The blonde said that she could take care of herself on her own, and that the guy would be better off taking the bracelet. The Duchess placed the bracelet on his wrist. Smiling, the brunette explained that he was glad that she was nearby. The girl turned away sharply so as not to show her sincere feelings. The Duchess reminded him that he was very drunk and should have rested. Theodore tried to get up, gently whispering his lover's name. The guy grabbed Lily's hand tightly, and at that very moment his consciousness plunged into the moment when the attack occurred. Tightly squeezing her wrist, Theodore begged his beloved not to leave. The blonde reminded herself not to hesitate, and she was doing a good job. Lily reminded that if you have to choose someone to trust, it doesn't have to be Theodore Valentino. She realized that if she gave up and gave up everything, then her life would have no meaning. The blonde understood that if there was a chance to avoid a worse future, she must decisively choose this path. The Duchess knew that she had to make the right decision. The brown-haired woman reminded the lady that it would soon begin to rain. Lily said that in this case he should return. More than a week has passed since the end of the hunting festival. The first thing the girl returned to the estate was to carefully check the mysterious picture that Owen had sent. The blonde asked the magician for forgiveness for making her check twice. She assured that he did an excellent job. The guy explained that this was his job and she shouldn't worry. Lily asked her husband what the picture looked like in his opinion. She explained that she needed to check something. Peering carefully at the gift, the Duke said that he saw an unpleasant red sea which seemed to be soaked in blood. The girl asked her husband if he had ever told her brother or anyone else about what he saw in this picture. A little confused, Theodore assured that he had not told anyone about this. The blonde asked others what was depicted in the painting, but everyone talked about the blue sea. Lily wondered why the picture turned out to be red only for her husband. The blonde suggested that this could be due to Theodore's condition. The girl was sure that the one who lost his memory saw the Red Sea, and Owen either suspects this, or probably knows. Lily suggested that there was a high probability that her brother was behind Theodore's memory loss. The Duchess thought that the sudden crack that appeared in Ashridge Forest was quite suspicious, as if someone had specifically caused it. The girl suggested that the magician who accompanied her brother that day artificially created a crack. The blonde was sure that all the long-standing tragedies that weakened the Valentino family were the work of her family. Seeing the mistress's darkened face, Charlotte asked what had happened. The blonde felt guilty even though it wasn't her fault. The girl suggested that Theodore Valentino was the main culprit of the tragedies. Suddenly a guy appeared before her eyes and gently called her by name. Lily knew that one day the dam that held back emotions would collapse, and they would flow in an uncontrollable stream. The girl knew this well, and she did not want to be caught in the arms of this powerful stream again. The Duchess sharply pushed Theodore away, asking him not to approach. She was emotionally exhausted, trying to hide all her sincere emotions. The blonde asked her husband to pretend that he simply did not know her. Theodore explained that it would rain soon. The girl's body trembled. The brunette explained that he came to pick her up because it was about to start raining. The guy asked his beloved not to be afraid. Lily lowered her eyes and realized that he had said not to be afraid, without even realizing what she was afraid of. The blonde tried to ignore his gentle, tremulous voice and careful touch, as if hugging something precious. This was everything that the Duchess had wanted in the past. The girl involuntarily remembered her late mother. At that moment, the woman asked her what color the baby liked best. The blonde assured that it was blue. Mom reminded me that the sky was blue when the sun rose, and that's why she liked that color too. At the last meeting, she promised to buy her daughter blue clothes for her 9th birthday. To Lily's great regret, the woman was never able to keep her promise. After that, the mother sold the baby to the Everett family home and disappeared from her daughter's life. The girl deeply hid the memories of her closest person in a blue outfit. Because of this, Lily never wore blue dresses, so as not to think about her mother. The blonde couldn't understand why these memories surfaced at that particular moment. Heavy drops of rain quickly fell on the delicate leaves of the roses. Theodore quickly walked up to his beloved. A very nervous blonde asked if he was really worried about her after he woke up from a head injury. The Duke admitted that he fell in love with her at first sight immediately after he woke up. With tears in her eyes, the girl asked why he changed his mind about her. Lily asked if he was mistaken about her. The blonde understood that the Duke would not be able to answer her question at that moment. The girl hated him because he was deluded and cold towards her and always looked down on her. The blonde understood that the guy had become the same as Everett's demons. The girl explained that one should not play with such feelings as the heart, which is filled with resentment. Lily explained that even his warmth, tenderness would not make up for those deep wounds. The Duke's concern for his wife brought her only pain, which was comparable to salt poured onto an open wound. Adelina ran up to her friend with a radiant smile and hugged his hand. The blonde realized that it would be nice to chat with Theodore in a normal setting. Soon the brown-haired woman ran up to the gentleman with warm towels. The brunette took one of them and threw it over his wife's shoulders. The guy explained that he constantly thought about it, and now he could not apologize to her for the past. The Duke explained that he was trying to hide his immaturity, and was confused about how to approach it. He assured that he would not be able to fully understand the burden she had endured until she remembered her past. The guy was sure that any of his efforts would be pointless and he wanted to address this issue. The brunette promised to definitely find out the reason. The Duke promised to find out what the misunderstanding in the lost memories was that caused him to ignore his feelings. Lily assumed that the guy had become disillusioned over the time he had spent with him. The Duke assured that this was not so. The blonde explained that she was sure that she was different from her father and brothers, despite the name Everett. The girl assumed that due to her low origin she was very different from them. The blonde explained that she was mistaken, because she studied with her father and grew up with her brothers and also became the same. The guy gently whispered his wife's name. Lily recalled that he once told her that she had to stop and stop trying. The blonde explained that she grew up in this den of demons and was no different from them. The girl asked Theodore to think about it again. The Duchess asked if he treated her well, or the ideal version he imagined. Cold drops of rain along with tears slowly rolled down the girl's face. Lily suggested that Everett would not only be pierced by an invisible arrow in the garden. The blonde suggested that the guy still had the same invisible scar. But because they were from warring families, he ignored his feelings, hiding them behind rudeness. Lily began to think that their meeting in the garden was fateful. Theodore was sitting in his office. Approaching the gentleman, the brown-haired man explained that he had investigated the activities of the Everett family in as much detail as possible. The knight handed the gentleman a small package. He unfolded the document and the Duke grinned. Brown noticed that there was indeed a war going on between the Everett sons. Theodore noted that judging by the contents of the document, Heisen had an inferiority complex towards his older brother. The guy realized that it wouldn't be difficult to accumulate dirt on the guy. But Owen was completely different. The blonde was a control freak and obsessed with his possessions. The guy explained that with such people, it is better to carefully consider the choice of bait, and you should not provoke them too much. The Duke was sure that this could turn against them. Looking at the paper, he realized that collecting dirt on the Everett family was tantamount to disturbing a beehive. Theodore asked the knight what his aunt was doing, since the woman often left the house as soon as he married Lily. The guy asked the subject to find out where the woman was all this time, who she was meeting with and what she was doing. Bowing, the brown-haired man assured that everything would be done in the best possible way. The knight asked why the brunette asked to investigate Miss Seymour's past actions. Smiling, Theodore explained that the woman was the main suspect. With surprise, the subject asked the master what he meant. The brunette explained that his aunt was good at something. When he was still little, long before the death of his parents, a woman was already doing something similar. The guy explained that adults were sure that children do not remember what is difficult for them to understand. The Duke assured that everything was not like that at all, and sometimes even little things were put off in his head. The guy said that he clearly remembered what his aunt did a long time ago. Over time, he was able to figure it out. Theodore explained that Miss Seymour was inciting conflicts. The guy asked the subject to think carefully, because there was a woman who wanted to become a duchess, but this place was already taken. The Duke asked Carmen what he would do in the woman's place. Rolling his eyes, the brown-haired man explained that he didn't want to become a duchess, so he didn't know the correct answer. Theodore sighed heavily and asked the guy to simply imagine what he would do. Annabella Seymour, being the second daughter, followed in advance to Valentino's castle. For more than 20 years, the woman did everything for this family. There were rumors that the woman was deeply attached to her older sister Renee. Annabella cared for her sister's son as if she were her own child. Despite the fact that the brown-haired woman certainly loved and appreciated her sister, she at the same time envied her. He asked what sense it made considering Theodore his own son. For several moments there was silence in the office. The Duke allowed Carmen to go because he needed to rest. Bowing, the brown-haired man accepted the order. Walking along the long corridors, the knight realized who the woman was who dreamed of becoming a duchess. The bright rays of the sun illuminated the painting, which was dedicated to Duke Valentino. Theodore realized that even though he had told Carmen this, he still doubted something. The brunette wondered why he didn't suspect anything if his aunt was really the instigator. The Duke clung tightly to the majestic portrait of his late brother. Theodore wondered what he would have done in his place. Before his death, his brother always told the young guy the right path. After the brunette finished his monologue, he felt something pop up in his foggy memory. Holding his head, which was splitting from the flow of information, Theodore suggested that everything in his head was blurring like a fog due to gaps in his memories. Walking along the corridors, the blonde was surprised at how much moralizing she received because she was caught in a little rain. Lily wondered if Jane was taking on too much responsibility. When the blonde saw her husband, she immediately noticed that he looked unwell. Quickly approaching Theodore, the girl asked if he was okay. The blonde placed her hand on his shoulder with concern and asked what was wrong. A small shiver ran through Lily's body as she looked into his empty sky-blue eyes. The Duke carefully asked his wife what she was doing in the corridor. The girl explained that she had come to see Dr. Soff. Lily couldn't understand why her husband's face seemed as merciless as before. The girl understood that the chilling gaze, the harsh and prickly tone, the wary, detached manner were not something special for the former Theodore before memory loss. The girl realized that in the end everything turned out that way. The blonde understood. The efforts were useless as they returned to their original position again. Someone sharply called out to the girl, causing her to flinch. Theodore, with cold sweat on his face, asked his beloved what had happened. The blonde pretended that everything was fine. At that moment, Lily realized that she was wrong and this could not happen. The girl explained that if he was standing in the corridor, then he was in the room with portraits. Confused, the brunette explained that he needed to think about something. An oppressive silence hung between the spouses. The Duchess asked if they should return to their rooms. Theodore asked the blonde if she painted portraits. The guy explained that it seemed to him that she only painted landscapes and still lifes. After hesitating a little, the blonde suggested that he came into her room when she was not there. Frowning, Lily reminded him that despite the fact that they were spouses in public, he could not enter the Duchess's chambers without her permission. Bowing his head, the guy explained that it was unforgivable on his part. The brunette tried to justify himself, but Lily asked not to take it into account and turn it all into a joke. The couple walked in silence along the long corridors. The girl said that she would go first, as Dr. Soff had given her some instructions. Theodore asked for forgiveness, explaining that he should not have detained his beloved. The blonde noticed that the Duke also looked tired and asked him to rest. In parting, Theodore asked his wife to protect herself. The Duchess wondered what her husband might be thinking about in the room with portraits. Walking quickly along the long corridors, The blonde realized that she could not ask directly. Lily realized that she would be busy as always, and there was no point in flying in unexpectedly without warning. With a smile, the brown-haired woman walked through the corridors, realizing that she had managed to find a lot of sharp medicinal herbs. The woman sincerely hoped that they would help the Duchess. Jane, entering the room, was sure that the girl was still sleeping. After the doctor entered her office, horror appeared on her face. The woman clenched her teeth tightly and asked if she was claiming that the Duchess's medical records had not been stolen. The Duke asked again to see if the door was closed in this way. In a trembling voice, the woman claimed that it was well locked, but when she returned, the door was open. The brunette was wary, because the documents described in detail the state of his beloved's health and a list of foods that should not be eaten, from inappropriate food to poisonous herbs. The guy noticed that the hospital was in real chaos, as if a thief had been in the room. Theodore noticed that the money, jewelry, and lists of medicines with account books were in place. The Duke realized that the thief's target was only his wife's medical records. The brunette tried to understand how a thief could get into Dr. Soft's hospital. Having thought about it, the guy realized that there was a high probability that it was someone from the castle, and decided to start by searching the servants. The butler began to carry out his master's instructions. Bowing, the girl said that Annabella was urgently looking for the gentleman. The brunette couldn't understand why she was so worried right now. The guy told the head butler to say that he would have to postpone it. Theodore explained that he needed to immediately go to his aunt. The Duke asked Jane to follow him. Entering the brown-haired woman's office, the guy asked the doctor to wait there. She obeyed the Duke. Seeing his wife, the guy could not understand what she was doing in this place. Lily sat with her eyes downcast. The Duke asked what business his aunt had called him for. Annabella coldly asked her nephew who the woman was who came with him. The guy explained that the brown-haired woman was Lily's attending physician. The brunette explained that he headed here immediately after he heard about what happened in her office. The brown-haired woman, gloomily, asked how Theodore could hide from her that Lily Everett was barren. The woman coldly explained that she was still going to say that she was the one who took the medical records. The brown-haired woman noticed that her daughter-in-law's health was not good, but he kept avoiding it. She was furious that the Duke had not even consulted her. Mrs. Seymour believed that her nephew was hiding something from her. She insisted that Dr. Soft was unlikely to show the records, so she ordered a search of the hospital. Theodore said that his wife's infertility has not yet been proven. The woman threw the documents on the table and asked if he was in his right mind. Annabella asked if he had forgotten about his duties as head of the clan. The brown-haired woman added that the girl was the daughter of the Everett family. The woman coldly noted that even if Lily was truly barren, the current Duke would still protect her. Theodore reported without a drop of doubt that his aunt was right. The brunette couldn't understand why he pushed the girl away, ignoring his feelings. The guy realized that he had come face to face with his feelings after losing his memory. Theodore said through clenched teeth that this did not mean that he was abandoning his duties as head of the clan. Infertility could be a valid reason for divorce in an aristocratic society. For aristocrats, there was nothing worse than not being able to produce an heir. When Miss Seymour began discussing infertility, the first thing she thought about was that it didn't matter. Lily saw no point in having a child in such an unstable situation. The Duchess did not want to pass on her misfortune to the child. The blonde suggested that her responsibility was to not have children. It didn't matter to Lily whether Theodore would protect her or not. The woman told her nephew that she did not expect to hear such a thing from him. Annabella was furious that the Duke connected his life with the illegitimate child of the Everett family. And besides, the girl herself was barren. Lowering his eyes, the guy said that he understood his aunt's concern. Theodore noticed that, looking back at recent events, it could not be denied that the brown-haired woman had lost her composure. The Duke recalled that she openly insulted the Duchess. Theodore asked if it was for the sake of their family. The pale woman asked how he dared to ignore her contribution. She asked if he doubted the Everett family, and she reminded me that the death of my sister and brother-in-law was an accident. But Camille's death was very suspicious, and she asked if this was why the guy continued the investigation. Clench your fists tight, guy. Wondered if his aunt was trying to use his brother's death to justify her intentions. Jumping up sharply, Theodore said that he no longer wanted to listen to this and suggested that we talk about it later. The woman, breaking into a scream, asked how he dared to make a scene in front of the one who replaced his own mother. The Duke coldly recalled that he was the head of the Valentino family. The guy explained that he himself would decide what to do with his family and clan. Theodore asked if she remained in Valentino, not thanks to his mother's last wishes. A slight tremor passed through Mrs. Seymour's body. The woman said that she did not like this child, and explained that the girl seemed creepy to her. For a long time, Annabella reassured herself that Lily was an outsider in the Valentino family, since she was the daughter of the Duke of Everett, half an aristocrat, who was born from a maid. The brown-haired woman explained that she was sure that the girl would sooner or later file for divorce and leave the castle. The Duke remembered that from the moment Lily arrived at the castle, his aunt told him about a divorce as soon as their family grew stronger. The woman often said that Lily could not initially become a member of their family. The brunette obediently agreed, explaining to the woman that she shouldn't have worried about it. The brown-haired woman had no intention of accepting the girl into the family. Annabella was very infuriated that the blonde, despite low birth, behaved like a duchess, and also dared to charm the head of the family. Mrs. Seymour was sure that Lily did not have a drop of the dignity of a noble lady. The brown-haired woman was amazed that even when they found out about infertility, the girl showed incredible impudence. The woman seemed disgusted by the expression on the duchess's face and the look that seemed to mock her. Annabella understood that Valentino's territory and fortress was a precious matter that she had been caring for so long. The woman went crazy, realizing that her position was no different from the mistress of the duchy. The brown-haired woman was sure that because of her seniority in the family, Theodore had to bow his head before her. The woman was sure that everything she had built for so many years had collapsed. Annabella wanted to protect Valentino and not let some girl tarnish their honor. The woman said that toxic substances were found in the sleeping pills that the lady took, causing side effects. The doctor reassured the girl that this was just a possibility, and infertility had not yet been proven. Jane explained that this is what she wrote in the medical notes. The woman explained that there was a more accurate way of diagnosis. The brown-haired woman asked Lily not to worry, explaining that she would borrow a magical instrument from the medical academy in the capital and conduct a test. The blonde listened carefully to the woman. She agreed, suggesting that she had a hard time. Confused, Jane explained to the lady that she should have kept a closer eye on the notes. The woman promised that from now on she would treat them as her own business and carry them with her wherever she went. The Duchess wanted to say that she should not have gone so far. Jane wished the lady a good rest and asked forgiveness for the disturbance. Left alone with her husband, Lily asked whether he was really going to cover for her even if she had infertility. The Duke assured that no matter what, he would protect her first and foremost. The guy reassured the blonde that if anything happened, they could adopt a child from among their relatives. The blonde grinned and was surprised that he was an idealist. For a long time, Lily considered her husband to be an extremely pragmatic person. The girl dreamed of ideals and reached out to them, but now she has become a realist. Theodore said it was time for him to return to his duties. The blonde told him not to worry. In parting, the Duke asked for forgiveness for forcing his beloved to go through this. Lily thought that these were exactly the words she wanted to hear from him. The girl dreamed of becoming special and precious to her husband. But even in those days, it was difficult to achieve understanding. Despite the fact that her husband enveloped her in care, Lily could not forget that fleeting glance. The girl was sure that her wife would never know about her sincere feelings. From that day on, most of all she thought about when Theodore's memory would fully return. The blonde has not yet made a final decision, but when this happens, it may be impossible to stay in Valentino's castle. Lily's head was filled with disturbing thoughts, because she was afraid that the Duke would forget everything that happened during this time. The blonde had never heard of such a side effect, but did not rule out such an outcome. The Duchess was afraid that Theodore would forget what happened until he had all his memories restored. Lily didn't know if this would make any sense. The girl carefully painted on a luxurious canvas. Lily asked if she really thought her paintings could be sold. The maid explained that there was a demand for drawings of flowers, butterflies, and animals. The brown-haired woman explained that it was now fashionable to add something like this to cards and letters, so that they would not look empty. Charlotte said that despite the fact that the lady never studied professionally, she still draws beautifully. Confused, the blonde explained that anyone could do this. Sighing heavily, Charlotte explained that it was stupid, and asked the lady to look at the sparrow she had drawn. The girl compared the drawing of a sparrow with a monster. The lady assured that if the girl practices more often, she will do much better. Charlotte was sure that she was hopeless at drawing, but quite good at embroidery. The maid explained that she was going to develop this talent in herself. Lily assured the servants that her work was beautiful, and that it would sell even better than her drawings. Embarrassed, the girl explained that the mistress was overpraising her. Looking at her robot with a smile, Lily realized that it was time to start coloring. The blonde, tightly clutching the palette in her hand, froze. Soon a girl entered the room and asked the lady for forgiveness. The maid explained that the fact was that the gentleman asked to take the blonde to the living room on the first floor. The old woman told the Duchess that she was honored by this meeting. Cécile introduced herself. The blonde asked if the woman was from the province of Alès. Cécile explained that she was very pleased that the heroine knew about this. The guy made an excuse that he took into account the mistress's schedule. But Cécile arrived earlier than expected. The artist said that Lily could call her Baroness Vines, but she assured that there was another name that she used as an artist. After the Baroness said that she had taken the pseudonym Georges Ranier, our heroine was very surprised. The Baroness insisted that she had been painting for more than 20 years. The artist's style was one of the Duchess's favorites. Lily couldn't believe that her husband knew about this and invited the artist. The Baroness explained that she perfectly understood the blonde's surprise, since Georges Ranier was known as a man. Smiling, the Baroness explained that it was difficult for a woman artist to achieve success. Vines said many people did this. She admitted that she herself was no exception. Smiling, the Baroness admitted that she went out in public in men's clothing. She assumed that it was in this image that she would be remembered. Vines admitted that she was surprised when she learned about the Duchess's hobby. The artist asked Lily if she could look at her work. The blonde smiled and answered positively, explaining that her skills were unlikely to impress. The girl admitted that she painted as a hobby. Vines, mysteriously putting a finger to her lips in a quiet voice, assured that many of the greatest works in this world began as a hobby. The Baroness took Lily's paintings and looked at them carefully. The blonde noticed that the woman was very polite. The girl showed the work to the artist, which she had long liked. It turned out to be much more pleasant than she thought. The Duchess talked with the idol about paintings. Quite quickly they moved on to learning, and Cécile was happy to share her accumulated knowledge. When the woman had to leave, she admitted that she was very pleased to talk with Lily. The Duchess told the idol that it was an honor to meet her. The blonde was very embarrassed, realizing that they still had a lot of topics to talk about. The girl said that she was very sorry that they had so little time to communicate. Cécile assured that she would be able to visit the duchy in 3 days. And she explained that it seemed to her that one day was not enough to communicate with such an interesting person, and she would like to talk more. Smiling, the artist suggested that they could become good friends. Lily's eyes lit up with joy. When the guest left the estate, the blonde asked her husband how he found out that Cécile Vines was Georges Ranier. The Duke said that long ago his grandparents supported the aspiring artist. Theodore explained that he accidentally learned about this from entries in the family ledger. The Duchess, from the words of her husband, realized that this was quite a long time ago, and suggested that thanks to Valentino's reputation, the artist maintained contact with them. The Duchess nervously asked the brunette how he found out about the rest. The guy didn't understand what his wife was talking about and asked again. Lily asked how he knew that her favorite artist was Georges Ranier. The Duke remembered how one day he crossed paths with Charlotte in the corridor, and after a short conversation, found out this information. The brunette explained that he realized this only after he returned to what he had missed. Theodore remembered that he had a gift for his beloved. The guy extended his hand to the blonde and asked her to follow him. Taking the Duchess to the door, the brunette asked if she wanted to open it. Hesitantly taking hold of one of the handles, Lily opened the room. The girl couldn't believe her eyes. In front of her was a huge art workshop. Turning to the Duke, the blonde asked when he had time to prepare everything. The guy explained that a lot of time had passed, and he was constantly thinking about when to tell his wife about this. Theodore explained that he was afraid of making the wrong choice again. He assured that he wanted Lily to be happy, and this place became a personal space where nothing would be associated with the name of Valentino. Theodore asked whether his wife would accept his modest wish. The blonde looked at every little detail in her workshop with delight. The girl tried to remember how many people prepared gifts for her from the bottom of their hearts. The Duchess realized that everything she received by living under the name Everett was just a formality. The girl vaguely remembered a doll that her mother gave her when she was very little, sewn from scraps. Lily wondered if there was a soul put into the toy. When the lady met Charlotte, she realized that the flowers that she often picked for her The lace that she carefully wove and the embroidered handkerchiefs she embroidered had a lot of heart in them. Lily felt similar emotions from Theodore's gift. The girl had no idea that such a day would come. The blonde, turning gloomy, told her husband that he would regret this moment. The Duke explained to his wife that his answer had not changed since that day. Lily noticed that the guy's gaze was clear and without the slightest hesitation. The girl realized that Theodore's eyes were clear, unwavering and honest, like the ideal she had strived for in childhood. From early childhood, the Duchess dreamed that a man with such a look would appear and save her from endless nightmares. Lily realized that at a certain point she broke down and began to change, eventually turning into the current version of herself. The blonde felt that after meeting Theodore she came to life again as that little Lily Everett who longed for salvation. The girl decided to extend her hand to him, because she was sure that a man with such a look would definitely save her. The blonde didn't want to believe it, because she knew that as soon as the guy's memory returned, he would forget all these days that were like a mirage. Lily had no intention of opening her heart to him again. The Duke gently whispered her name, explaining that he did not think that she would start crying. The caring guy wiped the tears from her refined face. The girl explained that she burst into tears with excitement and thanked her for the gift. Theodore asked his lover if she could look for a moment, and taking the jewelry out of his pocket, Theodore explained that it belonged to his late brother, and he taught his younger brother to tell fortunes on a coin. The brunette explained that his brother said that the result of a throw depends on luck, and luck depends on the will of God. A few moments later, the coin was spinning in the air. The brunette asked if the girl remembered asking him if he would regret it. Having opened the coin after tossing, the guy said that the answer was negative. Theodore assumed that if his older brother were alive, he would certainly reprimand him for his cold attitude towards the blonde in the past. The guy said that his brother had a much gentler and kinder character, and would be an impeccable head of the family, earning the respect of all residents of the domain. The Duke assured that he himself was distinguished by harshness and increased emotionality. Therefore, he believed that he was unable to fill the void left in the duchy after the death of his elder brother. With a heavy heart, Theodore said that now this responsibility lay entirely with him. The Duke said that he perfectly understood the feelings of his wife, who hated and blamed him. The brunette suggested that his request might seem impertinent. The Duke asked Lily for a chance to help to end her suffering. The brunette explained that he wanted to look forward to a future together. Lily could not understand how her husband could be so sure, because she could hear his heartbeat in this quiet room. The blonde understood that the trembling in her chest would one day subside. Lowering her eyes, the Duchess promised to try to trust her husband. Even though Theodore didn't say anything, the warmth in his fingertips betrayed his feelings. The girl understood that if these were fleeting memories, then it would not be difficult to agree. At this moment, the sun was slowly setting behind the horizon, and bright rays streamed through the transparent windows. This sunset seemed incredibly bright and beautiful to Lily. There was a bustle around the majestic buildings. Hearing footsteps behind her, Adeline told Mrs. Seymour that she was sure that she would not come. The brown-haired woman's face was calm and a little gloomy. The woman sat down on the bench opposite Adeline. Annabella noticed that they had not seen the lady for a long time. Confused, the girl asked to address her as before. Adeline recalled that they were only the two of them in the huge hall. The lady thanked Adele and asked her if news had reached her about the incident at the hunting festival. The woman was surprised that a crack had appeared in Ashridge Forest. Annabella asked worriedly if she was hurt. Confused, the girl said that she was fine despite the fact that many knights sacrificed themselves. Adeline said that thanks to the power of spirits, the Duchess managed to avoid great losses. Realizing that she had said incorrectly, the girl corrected herself and said that the salvation of the aristocracy was thanks to the power of Theodore's spirits. The aristocrat asked if this was strange. The girl could not understand why at that moment Lily was able to use her powers. Tightly gripping the dress, Adele explained that recently there have been rumors that relations between the Valentino spouses have noticeably improved. The girl explained that at first she also had a hard time believing it, and therefore decided to see for herself. Smiling, the aristocrat explained that she did not even suspect that Theodore valued Lily so much. Annabella sighed heavily and said that recently a scandal had broken out in Valentino's castle, as the servants had again begun to spread rumors. The brown-haired woman assumed that the snake had blabbed everything. Adele remembered that one day Lily was in a hurry somewhere, but it turned out that it was just because of her personal maid. The girl noticed that the Duchess treated everyone with special compassion, since her mother was a servant. The aristocrat admitted that when she first saw Lily, she seemed to her like a fragile petal, ready to fall apart at any moment. The girl explained that it seemed to her that just one touch could take the Duchess's life. The aristocrat noticed that over time the Duchess began to desperately defend herself. The brown-haired woman reminded the girl that she was Theodore's childhood friend. Annabella asked if she wanted to see how the Duke became close to the maid's daughter. The girl assured that the Duke was her closest friend. Placing her hand on her chest, Adele asked who could help him, if not her. The aristocrat tried to convince herself that Theodore only needed her. The girl understood that only she could understand her true feelings.